think so.
You guys can start.
All right,
Sorry.
we're on. New person. Welcome.
Is the theme
To
song
Wolfe.
playing?
No, I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
I never do it well, so I'm just
Yeah.
going to not do it this time. At some point, I'll
I
figure
kind
it
of
out.
like the shitty ones though. I think it's cool when it's bad, personally, but
I've been watching the Seth Meyers show, which has devolved into watch how this show falls apart,
Oh, no.
which is what I liked about David Letterman's show, which is the key of any successful late night program is that the show falls apart.
Just being on the edge of complete disaster.
chaos.
Conan was always good at that.
Exactly.
Yeah, the early
it's
Conans
what
were
works.
like whipped together. Like they were like TV level. Like, I mean, not to say to be a compliment.
No,
to
that's
TV,
fair.
Like or whatever. Yeah, but they, like remind me of each other. Like it seems like they were just dreaming up.
I mean, it's
weird
definitely
ideas.
an influence on me.
Yeah, for
Things
sure.
falling apart as they move forward.
Yeah.
Hi, kitty.
It's the
Wally?
second law of thermodynamics.
That's Freddie.
Freddie. I always remember it as
All
Wally.
things seem toward
You can call
entropy
him
and
Wally. I was gonna get a match to like these citronella.
Freddie,
because
come here, my new friend.
Sometimes there's
You're
still.
so cute.
Get out
Like
here,
there's so
cat.
many people. I don't
Look at your
Skeeter.
face.
Hi, buddy.
These people
Very
Have you ever seen
curious.
this many people before?
into
He
it.
has, yeah. Come on.
Come on. Hi, Freddie.
What a friendly boy.
He is friendly. What are you doing? I can't keep this door open all day.
There we go. You know,
Oh.
our-
He's gonna come out. He's gonna.
We're
There
having
we
a
go.
classic cat on the internet thing, except
Cat
the cat's
on-
not on the internet, I guess. Off camera, there's a cat.
What a
He's
beautiful
gonna smell my
little
cats
lamb.
all over
Oh
my backpack over
goodness.
here.
I smell a rabbit's cat. Come smell me.
So
Be
cute.
especially confusing.
Outside.
It's pretty Halloween eyes.
I love sitting in the backyard.
It's warm yesterday, and it's gonna be warm.
He's so
today.
sweet.
He's gonna hang out.
He's
He's just
so
working it out.
shy.
He's gonna hang out. He's just working it out.
Yeah,
It's okay.
Right, buddy?
What chapter are we on?
we're the last chapter.
Last.
Yeah, I did a terrible thing, which is that I need to learn how to skim because I am not a fast reader.
Sorry.
And I reread chapter 12. And then I got to the end and I was like, I read this chapter like 2 weeks ago. And then I started chapter 13, but then I had to get ready to come here. I was reading last night too. That's what I mean. I'm like a really slow reader and I could have read the whole thing.
Same, yeah. And sometimes, because there's so much that happens in the book, and sometimes if you're just like, kind of like opening it up and just like starting, you kind of like forget, like, and plus we've read it so many times
Yeah.
too, that it's
Yeah.
like, wait, were we here? Or,
I need to get back in that refresher mode. I get just distracted by reading other books.
No,
That's-
totally, me
that-
too.
yeah.
I'm reading like 3 other books right now.
yeah,
It's
I'm reading
ridiculous.
2 different books of short stories, and it's just like,
I
Oh,
can
you're
put
reading
one over
Legati,
there
right?
too if you want.
That's
yeah, well, I'm
smarter,
rereading
probably.
some Legati, and I'm also reading Joan
Maybe I'll
Aiken
put one.
stories.
Oh,
Um,
Somewhere.
I really like them. The book is a collection of her like strange tales, which I kind of like. It's got a big castle on the cover. I sort of expected them to be spooky,
Yeah.
but so far they're kind of
Find
like
somewhere to put it.
cute,
I
but
find if you put it
really
on the
weird.
ground,
And it's
like
like,
works
and
better.
it feels so good to read them.
Joan Aiken.
Joan Aiken.
No, I
yeah.
don't-
Have you just
Yeah, that might be
Hers?
good. As long as
Have
it
you mentioned
doesn't set the
it?
table.
I don't know. I picked it up because
Mine, if it starts, well, it starts
the
catching
the
on
press
fire.
that put out the collection, small beer, is Kelly Link's small press. And they do a sale every year where you can get a bunch of their books for very cheap, and so that was one that I picked up.
Cool.
And it's really good. Like it's just like very unexpected kind of.
Does it take
kind of
place
stuff.
in reality, or is it more fantastical?
It's fantastical for sure, but I would put it more like in the realm of like, have you read any like Saki?
Yes.
Yeah, like
yeah.
it's got that vibe to me
Okay.
of this kind of like not necessarily like spooky, but just kind of like I'm gonna throw some weird shit at you. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, whimsical, right?
Yeah, a little
It's-
bit whimsical. I think some spooky stuff probably will happen in some of the other stories, but
Yeah.
the first couple of stories that I read are just like kind of adorable. But like in a I don't know. It was
Adorable, eh?
I had a hard week, and like picking those up and reading them was like, man, this feels really good.
That's cool.
So
Wow, that sounds great.
yeah, so that's That's kind of where I've been. But
She's an open tab in my phone now, as she will be for now probably
Right.
a couple years before.
I literally
I
have
read
tabs
it.
open in my phone from like months ago. Where I'm like, I'm gonna care about this at some point.
I got a new phone and all my old tabs disappeared. So sort of clean
All that
slated.
knowledge.
You know, I'll rediscover it at some point. Be like, oh right, I remember.
I
Right.
just have the notepad with like different pages of the notepad
Yeah,
for different things.
yeah.
I have a note.
That's
There's a
I have an
lot of
actual
movies
note
I
in
would
my
never
phone.
have watched if I hadn't just been like, I'm putting that on the list.
Yeah.
Like I
Mhm.
never remember about it, and then I don't remember what it is, and I just like watch it.
I am the opposite of this. I have no tabs open in my phone. I take no notes.
Yeah.
You just
I just keep talking to myself. I
you
gotta
just
do over and
you
over.
get-
But I feel
things
like
as they come.
You also like have watched 300 times as many
Yeah,
movies as I have.
the way that you consume media is insane.
You don't really need it because you're just gonna get to it at
That's
one
true.
point anyway or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
Maybe you
Yeah.
don't even plan. Like you're just open to the experience. You're like, hey,
Yeah.
this is here. I'm watching it now. And instead
You
of like
don't-
spending time planning on it.
You don't feel
This,
like you have a
this book is in
backlog.
my pocket. I guess I'm gonna read
I'm
that.
amazed
Yeah.
whenever you're talking. You're like, oh yeah, I've watched all of like whatever random TV show. When did you watch
Yeah, that like
this?
just came out.
Well, but the crazy thing too is that Connor watches things in 10-minute bursts.
Yeah, I do. Because they're really stressful.
They're stressful.
Yeah, so I can only watch like 10 minutes of a thing at once.
Okay.
Watch
Then you
something
gotta-
else or read something or write.
Oh,
on.
so you're like an octopus and you got many
Yeah, I just
hands
keep
going
bouncing
all the
between
time.
things
That
all
makes
the
it make sense.
Yeah.
Well, sort of, because I can just see. Because
I would lose my
Because
mind.
I think my
Yeah.
attention span is pretty short too.
I could do 2 or
So,
3
like,
narratives. at
I'll
the
be
same
like,
time.
Yeah, this is ADHD.
oh, I have to read a whole book. Oh Jesus! But I have to read 3 pages of a book,
Mhm.
and then I can watch a TV show. Like
Well,
I don't.
The only way I can start doing work is to be like, okay, my first task is open up Word, and then I can go watch a video.
Yeah,
You know?
that's part of it.
Like, and every time, if I've already started writing, I'm like, all I have to do is read what I've already written. And as soon as I start doing that, I know I'll write again. But everything has to be bite-sized.
So you
Right now,
figured
I'm
out-
watching That 70s Show, but I'm watching only,
this is
there's
what
a
I mean.
YouTube channel of only the funny scenes from each episode.
Oh, all right. That's
So, like,
that's
each
You don't have to
episode
watch
is,
any
like,
of the actual
7
plot,
minutes
like
long.
plot filler.
Right. It's just the jokes, because
That's like there's somebody
plot sucks. It's
There's
only
somebody
the jokes.
I'm working with right now who's always talking about how he doesn't watch sports, but he just watches all the highlights or like
Exactly.
the clips instead of the highlights. He's like, I just want to see like the exciting parts.
That's the
Some
way
people
to watch
do that with
sitcoms.
wrestling matches, but I can't get into that. I gotta watch like.
It seems like with wrestling, the pageantry is part of it.
Well,
You, like,
it's all
wanna
about the
see-
build. It's like
Yeah.
like you can just have these like high spots that are like whoa, but like if you're not watching the build up to them, then they don't have the same impact.
Yeah.
It's just like wild things happening, and it's yeah you gotta like see them get to it.
Yeah. It's not in the context, right?
Pacing. It's all pacing.
Right. Good wrestling is about pacing.
Good everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Connor, I'm really impressed that you figured out how to trick yourself into doing stuff.
Is-
I've noted that you've been like really prolific. You've been doing a lot.
Yeah, quite
lately.
productive.
Well, thank you.
Productive, yeah, that's the word.
Yeah, when I got diagnosed with ADHD, and I was like, oh, well, I'll just lean into that. And I feel like,
Oh, are you on speed?
no, I just only do things in 10-minute bursts.
Embrace the method.
I just decided I'll be ADHD, and it's worked out.
You should get the speed too, even if you don't sell it.
I suppose.
You heard
I
it here
suppose.
first, internet.
That's right.
And it's free. Hey, there's talking. They might be telling us about the sound. Huh?
Who's on here? Johan said, I only watch fight boxing highlights 90% of the time. Joseph is also here.
All right.
Whoa.
Hi, Joe.
Says baybeeee. Johan says, crazy sight here. Whatever that means. So-
It's a crazy sight.
Welcome-
It's
Oh,
what
yeah.
it means.
Yeah, like this.
It's what I would think it means.
Welcome, boys. Glad to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess they can.
You don't know they're boys.
true. I assume they're boys.
Yeah. But you don't know.
13 Wolf
He's
fine.
aficionados.
Yeah,
Oftentimes.
maybe if there are any lady fans
It definitely is.
of the book that aren't in this room right now, then,
Right.
One of them tried to get me out of the Facebook group.
Oh yeah.
oh wow,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
She was the one who didn't like me the most.
Because he called
Good for
everyone
her.
libertarian.
or cat.
I just pointed out like, we're using a lot more right wing rhetoric now because I watched somebody say, "Cuck liberals can't handle Gene Wolfe," and so I just pointed out, this is right wing rhetoric.
Imagine.
She's like,
Yeah,
how dare you
I
bring
guess
up politics
It might
in this
be
group?
true that cuck liberals can't handle it, but like hardcore leftists can.
Yeah.
Right.
But when that person is saying cuck liberals, they mean like us.
They don't know what they mean.
Yeah,
You're-
they don't.
yeah, they don't know what
They
they-
mean somebody's gonna get upset about.
They think
Yeah.
we're liberals.
Right. That's right. I get a little bit like offended if someone's like, "Oh, you're so liberal." I'm like, well, it's not exactly
I'm
how
like,
I
"Fuck
identify.
I'm so
Don't you
going
call me
all
that?
the way around.
And they're like, "Oh,
I do
thought,
not accept
I
being
thought
called
you
that.
were liberal."
I do not accept being called that.
No, get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
That's
I
like
accept
when
all
whenever I'm
labels, whatever you
arguing with
wanna
my
call it,
dad,
that's
he's like,
fine.
"Oh, it's such a like liberal." I'm like, "No, this is like anarcho-syndicalism, Dad. Let's talk about it."
And yes, it is imaginary.
It's as imaginary as what my dad thinks
Yeah.
capitalism
Absolutely.
is. So,
Absolutely.
No, I see no reason that your political beliefs shouldn't be imaginary because
Yeah,
nobody,
they're aspirational.
no
No,
one's
they should
going,
be.
It's all
Yeah.
aspirational.
no one's going to be like, okay, today
idealism.
we're setting up the world how Jordan wants, and we're going to that's never going to happen. So I can
Yeah, I'm
think
not writing
whatever
policy.
the fuck I want. I can
Yeah.
think anything.
That reminds
And I'm
me
going
of the Grimes quote where,
Oh God.
where Grimes was explaining how she was only. Oh, that was so funny. Like, guys, okay, I know this looks like I was reading like the Communist Manifesto on a corner, but I was actually just pretending to read.
yeah.
I really believe in what, like universal basic income based on like gaming
Yeah.
and like
The
Oh,
blockchain.
and the blockchain, but I don't think that's been like articulated.
Yeah,
yet.
her phrase was, "It's really hard to discuss my political beliefs because they haven't actually been like put into practice yet, or like they haven't been like enacted in real life or something." It was really weird. It was like she was making an excuse for not being able to speak coherently about
Yeah.
something she was speaking about because everyone else didn't figure it out already yet.
Right.
It was
Could have
really
said
bizarre.
like, I don't know.
And you know, it's just some weird Elon Musk idea that they like talked about one night, you
when
know,
they
like
were
laying
high.
around.
Yeah, that's what Jordan said. Like,
It's
they
like
were
Elon
high.
Musk was like, what if we had all human beings mine cryptocurrency, but we made it into a fun game, and then we paid them the smallest amount possible every month to do it?
But-
and that's exactly probably what he was saying. And
That
then,
is-
and what he will do, and we will be
Right.
doing in 2 years.
There's
It's the plot of the Neil Stephenson book he was reading.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of the Black
Right.
Mirror episode.
Totally.
No,
on the
absolutely.
bicycle.
That's some
Totally.
Stevenson
Oh my
shit.
God.
Except he wasn't reading it. He just read the blurb about it.
I've read
Does
it.
he-
I know which one he was
I know,
reading.
but I'm saying he doesn't read books.
Well, yeah.
There's
He
a-
read the blurb about it, or like asked
The wiki.
someone else was like,
Yeah.
"Have you
Yeah,
read this book?
someone
It's
told him.
about this, this, this."
Yeah.
He didn't even probably read the blurb. Someone just like
Mhm.
recapped it to
There's
him.
some fucking startup asshole was talking recently about like, we need to like rethink the metaverse and it needs to be and it's like, you guys read Snow Crash and took it seriously, right? Like, you're like, oh, this is how things are supposed to be. Everything is just divvied up by corporations, and then we spend all of our time in a virtual world that's extremely susceptible to attack.
That is a crazy feedback loop between sci-fi and like actual corporate dystopia. You know, like one kind of like feeds into the other, and then the other feeds into the other, and then the other is like, oh, that's influential. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll write about this, and then like, oh, I'll make that real because I'm influenced by this.
I used to know a tech guy who would do a thing where he would be talking about some idea he was obsessed with, and then you'd say, oh, there's the thing in this book that's like 40 years old that has something to do with what you're saying. And they'd be like, oh, really? And they'd take like a paragraph of information about that book you're talking about, and then they'd like smash it into what they already believe.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, now I'm going to make what you just said better. And and then they'll start talking, and you'd be like, well, actually, you should read the book because it says all those things you're
because
saying.
it's 250 pages.
Yeah. But there was like
there's a warning.
Right.
Right.
And it demonstrates
Right.
what's wrong about your idea.
yeah, there's like this instinct to like be obsessed with the thing that's going to change the world, and then any information you get has to support that and have something to do with it, and you can like reinvent stuff that's already been invented, like you're coming up with it for the first time, like sort of the Kanye and zines or whatever, of like, oh my god, that's amazing that kind of existed, I should make it good. And then
Kanye invent zines?
he discovered them and went, like, and flipped out about them online for a little while and was like,
Really?
yeah, and was like, zines are the future, I'm gonna tell you all about zines. And he did like a whole day, like all days on Twitter.
Wow.
That's cute.
I'll have to send
Amazing.
Kanye the zine that I'm working on. We'll see how he feels about it.
It was a while ago. It was back when he was more. I don't know. Is he still on Twitter? I thought for some reason he might have been taken off.
I think he's on and off.
He had this record that he put out that he initially only released like doing live stream like listening parties to it, and then it did come out and it's like a clean record. And he was there's supposed to be like an Andre 3000 feature on it, but they didn't tell Andre until he had like already done like his bit. They're like, oh, this is supposed to be like clean. It's like you asked Andre 3000 to do a clean feature on a Kanye song. It's so stupid.
I hope they left it in. It's just like clean, and then it says the worst stuff.
That
It goes
that'd
away
be
and
incredible.
it's clean again.
Yeah, he's an easy guy to have a clean feature.
Hey,
No,
that's
all of his
fine.
rap, all of his lyrics are about
to
fucking.
suggest that, hey,
Just
guys,
like
clean.
he is.
Yeah,
I was
but
gonna
he
say,
is.
he does that
dropping
thing
a lot of
where it's like,
F-bombs.
it
I mean,
does-
Like,
I don't
it's
think it's
about
so much the
something
cursing thing.
not
It's just like the
Right.
content
But he
of
makes
Andre
it he
3000's
passes it off.
entire musical oeuvre is fucking.
I guess that is
Like
true.
he doesn't do drugs. Like he's just.
That
he's
is
like,
true.
He's
That
like
is true.
he's like a Prince kind of figure,
That-
where it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
his whole deal is just boning
I'm trying
down.
to bone,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about, for some reason, for some reason the other day, the line from that Hey Ya song, which I don't particularly like, I'm a huge Outkast fan, but that's like
That
you
song
know-
is awful.
yeah, but
I
I
don't know.
just
I mean, if it-
but
You
It's
get
there's a
some,
designed
lot
to be-
worse songs
that's
than
what
that
it's
song.
if you
trying
get some
to say.
distance from it and come back to it, it's like this is a pretty good.
No,
song.
but the line popped into my head, don't want to meet your daddy, just want you in my caddy. And I was just thinking about how funny it is, and just like enjoying how
Don't
funny
want to meet your mama, just want to make you comma.
Exactly.
It's hilarious.
Hilarious.
It's really funny.
Hilarious. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it is all.
Have you seen the Key
I didn't never
Key and
really
Peele sketch
thought about it.
where like
Oh,
But
yeah.
why
What's your
Outkast will
big
never
boy?
get back together?
right
Yeah.
he's like in the coffee shop and then Andre 3000 comes in like dressed up like Peter
You're like
Pan.
playing a
He's like,
playing a flute.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I saw that. That was
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, thank you for reminding me of that.
It's
Yeah,
worth
I wanna
I watched that
rewatch- I want to
recently.
rewatch that.
It's a good one.
The best one, not to start talking about this, but the best one is when, like the continental breakfast, and he's
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Ooh," and then it's like, just being so excited about all the things in the continental breakfast, and like it's like the most amazing, beautiful meal he's ever had. I love it. It's so funny.
Was he supposed to play Jimi Hendrix in a movie and the family nixed it? Or was it some other?
No, it was him. I think it maybe happened,
Oh,
but
really?
they couldn't use any of the Hendrix music.
What
it was.
the fuck?
Yeah, it
It
was. It
happens.
was some kind of thing where they we were trying to make a biopic, couldn't get the rights to any of the music, so they had to
Yeah.
work around it, which seems
think they
terrible.
Well,
Well,
that's
play
like-
Hendrix like music.
Biopics
Yeah.
are awful. Nobody should ever
Yes,
make
they're the
biopics.
worst. They're the
They're not
absolute
true.
worst.
They're
Love 'em.
among my
Great
favorite
things.
kinds of movies.
Oh my god, I hate them
No.
so much.
But I agree that they're just utter trash and they're so terrible and there's nothing redeeming about them
Sometimes they're
except
so
the fact
bad.
that I love them. That's
Yeah,
the
that's
redeeming
legitimate.
quality.
That's a legitimate stance.
Yeah.
As long as
It's
in your
always-
love of
Yeah.
them, you are appreciating how fucked they are.
Yeah.
It's not scholarship. It's
No.
storytelling.
Right.
Yeah, it's just they make a
It's
person
bad
more
storytelling
boring.
also.
It's like you never.
It's a flattening.
And it,
Yeah,
it
but
seems like
it's
there's a
so
template
lame.
for them, right?
Yeah,
like
it's
it's like,
so
oh, I'm
lame.
like a misunderstood person. Oh, and then I meet someone early on who inspires me and
Yeah.
I love, and then I go into hardship. I'm famous now. It's hard being famous. And then at the end, they like.
And then I
find
repeat
moment of
something from a
solace.
couple scenes ago.
Yeah, and then I like say one of my lyrics in normal conversation. Like the king of all biopics is The Doors.
Yes, I was about to say.
Okay. I love that movie.
Yeah,
It is
so
terrible.
Oliver
It's so-
Stone is a ridiculous man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
his 80th
That's maybe the
birthday,
only movie that
uh,
I like of his.
The lady, oh no, they're all amazing. The lady from Democracy Now! Asked
Amy
him,
Goodman.
Yeah, Amy Goodman was like, in all of your work, what is the thing you're most proud of? And he said, the entirety of my work.
That's,
Yeah,
all of your work.
he is amazing.
It's amazing.
What is your
But you
favorite
haven't
film
seen.
that you've made?
Have you
all
seen
of them.
that Snowden one? Because it is unbelievable.
No, I really, really want to.
It is so bad. It's like
Ugh.
crazy. They just.
Yeah.
It's like a whole. It's just like a romance drama about him and his girlfriend.
I like
It's
that.
like so stupid.
I
It's
like-
unbelievably stupid.
I like that the trailer for W showed you the best part of the movie, which is just when he's sitting there screaming with his mouth open. That's the best part. That's the
I
only
never-
part you need to see.
I never saw that.
Like
I
Home
didn't see
Alone.
anything.
Yeah. He does. His hands are on the desk, and he's just like, ah! That's the best scene.
I love it.
Oh, I recently watched JFK, but it was like
Oh,
That movie
I
is
just,
kind of
like-
like amazing in a way, in a certain
Yeah.
way. In a
it's
certain
based on
way.
a book by my favorite conspiracy theorist.
David Icke.
No, I
That's why it's funny.
hate him.
wow. deep cut.
I'm surprised we don't talk about David Icke more on this channel.
Who's that?
Who is the
He's
woman
a-
sci-fi author who
he's
got
a
canceled
really
for liking him? Was it
Sports
Octavia
commentator who
Butler?
came up with the idea.
What?
No, it wasn't
Reptilians.
Octavia Butler.
Nobody
Something.
canceled Octavia Butler.
Somebody.
Books are good.
Oh, who was it?
Wait, what?
There's
No.
like a famous black woman sci-fi author who got canceled for liking David Icke too much. Oh no, it's not a sci-fi author. It's like it's what's her
Oprah.
name? No,
That
it's
That would
close
be
though.
incredible.
But Zora Neale Hurston maybe?
Wow.
Yeah.
We better verify.
Their
before we
eyes
just-
were-
yeah.
Yeah.
Check it, internet.
David
I'm just
Icke.
saying.
Wrote that?
Yeah,
it was
you
something
need to
I
like
found out
decide
recently.
one. You have to kind of know.
I mean that's sort
Yeah,
of how
let's
canceling
let's
You heard
not
it
let's
here
not play the
first.
game where we just name black female
Yeah,
authors
exactly.
that we know of.
But it's a shocking one where you're like, what? Like she got canceled and then it's for liking David Icke. Like it's
That's significant. That's relevant to our interests.
Oh, you got the jelly too.
I do have the jelly too.
Oh yeah, it's so good. I think the last time I saw you, you guys still had the first one.
Yeah, that
It's
was
much
like
nicer.
like 2 years ago. When
Oh yeah. We probably talked about it.
Chapter
We
13
haven't.
is what we're on?
Oh,
Yes.
of
Is
the,
there a chapter
of
13?
Who wrote
the,
Color Purple?
Oh, okay.
of the
That's
Of the
Alice
second
Walker.
Yeah.
That's who it is.
of
Oh.
Lake of the Long Sun.
Oh.
Of Lakey?
The second book. End of book.
The Call Day Surrenders. That's where my pencil is.
I have read this before, so I do know what happens.
I guess we did
I
talk
think we've
about.
all read this before.
I mean, talked
it
about
says
12
it
of
right
it.
in the title.
Alice Walker, that's who it is. It's not
We
Zora
already
Neale
said
Hurston.
that.
Yeah, I'm just it's for them.
Oh, okay.
So
For
they're
the
not
live
slander.
TV audience.
Yeah,
Oh, here we go. to
for
the
people who are looking for David Icke's.
Jan said,
Thanks
yeah,
for
what's
that.
the loud binging? Is it a Pavlovian style bell?
Is there a loud binging?
I think it's just the wind chime.
Oh.
It's
We also
beautiful
got-
nature.
Jan also asked if is Bloodsport a biopic?
Hmm.
It's if you believe Frank Dukes, then yes.
Did we watch Bloodsport? I don't think so.
And then Johan said that we're on chapter 11, part 4. I did.
Word.
It does say chapter 11 in the title to this episode, so. But it says chapter 11 2 question mark. So
Okay.
We don't know.
we talked
I
about
think
12 last time
we
because
did.
we talked about
Yeah.
lemur.
My pencil is on
We talked
13. Is
about
on
it.
13.
Yeah,
The
cool.
pencil don't lie.
Now it's never bad to look at the end of the previous chapter.
Let's just back it back up a little.
Just to see.
Ho ho ho! Before
Just-
we get ahead of
Just
ourselves.
to make
Oh, because
sure.
the last thing that happens in that chapter is a giant fish, and
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which they
That is
don't.
cool.
It's. I feel like Gene Wolfe likes to introduce aquatic phenomenon, but not really describe them in too much detail.
Mhm.
I think this is one of those cases where
Isn't
later
it-
Silk has a little memory of the great, I think it's gold, red, and black thing
Yeah.
swallowing
Yeah, he says
her up.
a
Far
monstrous
larger than-
mottled face, black, red, and gold, far larger than any wall of the manse, and a gaping mouth that closed upon the splayed figure he had seen. It passed below him as a floater rushing down some reeling mountain meadow might pass a floating thistle seed, and the turbulence of its wake sent him spinning.
See, a lot of authors would have like dramatized that whole scene.
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty big, adventurous scene, not really like a little recall.
Yeah, that's
But
just
not
one
people.
paragraph, but that's actually like a beautiful little,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, does it really well.
Well, he loves to put important things in the background just because the character's not looking for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something he does.
Yeah, I feel like those moments of like kind of poetry that he has are usually kind of like concealing or not necessarily like occluding something bigger that's happening.
Well, it's like ending the whole book with, and then all hell broke loose at the gate. Since we've come to another gate, I'm ending the book.
Yeah.
It's like this is resonant in a in a metaphorical way. So we're gonna skip whatever happens.
Yeah.
I actually prefer like it more action to be more poetic or suggested, or even to be like, wow, what a great fight that was, because I just don't want to read action. I really
Yeah.
don't, and I
Yeah.
can't follow it. It's not what I want.
Well,
Interesting.
so in the Poetics, Aristotle says that all major action like that, killing of people and whatnot, should happen off stage, because big spectacle degrades the art.
I think it's also harder to accomplish
Yeah.
in a way that feels like effective. You know,
Sure.
like it's
Yeah.
really hard to write a fight scene.
Well, it's really
That-
hard
that's
to
like-
stage a fight scene.
Yeah.
too. Or I mean, at least it's harder than not staging it.
Yeah, definitely.
Leaving
And-
it to the imagination certainly makes it
Right.
much larger than anything you could do.
And I
a
feel-
really
I feel like-
emotional scene can be so corny too.
Yeah, well, I feel like the only movies that really have like actually good fight scenes are when it's just really skilled martial artists
Yeah.
just doing the thing that they do.
Yeah, when we're here
Right,
for
but
the
in that
fight
case,
scenes.
it's almost something different, right? Then you're watching something more akin to ballet. or-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dance.
Yeah.
Like you're not really there for the story.
That's why
It's like-
American fight scenes are all completely illegible because it's just like
Yeah.
shaking cameras
Yeah.
and like bodies flying
Oh,
around.
Which is a
and-
form of having the action happen off stage, I think.
basic. Yeah, I mean it's
It's
like
Your
a-
imagine the idea, theoretically at least, is that your
You have the
imagination is going to
suggestion.
fill in the stuff that you can't.
I
see.
feel it's like it's doing that, but not trusting the audience enough. So it's
Sure.
it's like a weird trick of like you're getting what you want, but we're making you do the work in your head.
I
There's
liked
that
it
scene
in The
in-
Bourne Supremacy.
There's that scene in Snowpiercer, if you've seen it,
Yeah.
where they're in the tunnel.
The movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's watched the show.
Right. I haven't.
It's a book too, I think, a comic
Yeah,
book.
it's a comic book.
Yeah.
About
But
the show?
it's like all in the dark.
No,
The whole fight scene is
Yeah,
just in the dark.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that
But
is
no,
interesting.
the light does come on.
A
Like
little
someone, they bring fire. Yeah, they bring fire at some point, and you see more. But
Hmm.
it's like that's kind of the coolest. I think one of the coolest scenes in the movie, which people I think don't really like that movie, but I do.
Really, I like the movie.
Have you seen the Korean version? Supposedly, the American version was heavily edited to have less Korean-only scenes in it. Like
Okay.
they
that
took
makes
out
sense.
tons of scenes where there wasn't a famous American actor.
Yeah.
And somebody said that if you watch a Korean version, it's like a completely different movie.
Cool.
Oh, I want to do that.
I'll watch
Yeah,
it.
I'd much prefer that. I think.
Yeah.
Not to divert
I'll
things,
watch
but
that
speaking of Korean dystopias, has anyone seen Squid Game on Netflix?
I
Oh,
have
no,
a lot
I
of
haven't seen
feelings
it.
about Squid Game.
I've
I have
only
not
watched-
seen it.
I've
Don't
only watched a
share
few
any of them right
episodes.
now.
The thing that I heard.
Do you feel liking it, disliking it?
I feel okay. You're not on Instagram, are you?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. So Squid Game borrows incredibly liberally from Battle Royale, which the dude who created it acknowledges.
Yeah.
But it borrows even more from a manga called Kaiji Ultimate Survivor, which is about gambling.
Oh
And-
yeah, you talked about that.
yeah, which is like
Kaiji
an absolutely incredible TV show that was like from 2007, based on a manga from 1995.
Yeah.
And some of the ideas in Squid Game, I watched all of Squid Game, and at the beginning I was like, wow, this is a lot like Kaiji, but he'll probably take it in a different direction. And then that kind of happened. But then repeatedly throughout the series, when they need something big,
Yeah.
dude just goes right to Kaiji.
Oh,
And then by the end of the
interesting.
show, it was like, really? Like, this is allowed? And then so when I was looking up online about it, like, people have accused him of plagiarizing, like, other things.
Yeah.
And, like, and so he came out and said, like, yeah, well, I actually wrote this in, like, 2008,
Yeah.
but nobody would make it. So this thing that you're saying that it resembles was made afterwards. But I was inspired by Battle Royale, which is, like, there's a lot of Battle Royale obviously going on, or Battle Royale. But, and so I've made me even more mad that he was, like, copying to, like, kind of stealing from
Yeah.
something when he's fully,
Literally
yeah.
copying something else.
The thing that I heard about it was like, a lot of people have been like, yeah, I'm into this, but I've seen a few takes that are like, I don't know why people are so into Squid Game. It's like every shonen anime. Like,
Right,
if you
right.
watch anime, this is not new or interesting.
Yeah.
There's things about
Well,
it that are
that's
really
probably
there's
good.
things about
Yeah.
that are really attractive. Like, it looks like the look of it is great.
Yeah.
They've done an amazing job casting faces. Like, some of the performances are really, really good. But, like,
Yeah.
ultimately I can't not, like, just hate the creator by the end because he kind of took this like, Kaiji is so good because it's one of the most, I feel like angry and cerebral takedowns of capitalism that it, like, exists in cartoon TV form. And I feel like he took the big concepts from it and then stripped away all the cleverness.
Yeah.
Like, Kaiji is super, super cerebral and involves, like, a guy who's gambling that is really, really driven and desperate and also really, really smart. And you get to see, like,
Yeah.
the fun of the show is, like, him getting confronted with, like, a horribly arbitrary gambling game with super, super high stakes.
Right.
And then him figuring out a way to get through it that's, like, clever and
Yeah.
kind of, like, around the side. And then something happens to mess it up, and then he has to figure out another
Right,
way.
right, on
And,
the
like,
spot.
Squid Game
Yeah, it
dispenses
does
with
that.
all of that. It takes away, like, there's no point in which the gambling is interesting.
I thought a little bit, like, I haven't watched the whole thing yet, so I'm not as far ahead, and I would appreciate no spoilers, and I am enjoying it. But I thought, like, there's, like, a scene where they're doing, like, tug of war, and I thought, like, that was maybe not as good as Kaiji. I haven't seen that either, but I do think that they were, like, they had to be scrappy and, like, figure out, like, how to,
Yeah.
do that better
The
against the other
leaning
team.
back was cool. That
Yeah.
was, like, as close as I feel like that show ever gets to being like, oh, somebody outsmarted this game.
Right.
I mean, you can see the stumbling forward from a million miles
Right.
away, but the leaning back was cool.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's the only point where there's, like, a moment of
yeah.
like, how are we gonna make this horrible situation okay?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's all just like trauma.
What's it? I gotta watch that show you're talking about.
Kaiji
Yeah.
is hard to
Yeah, that sounds
find.
good.
It's got 2 seasons, but it's like a show that, like, it's like 22 minutes or something
Yeah.
per episode.
Yeah.
And at the end, you're like, I need to know what happens next, but I cannot watch today because I can't put my muscles through this again.
Yeah.
Is it on Kiss Cartoon?
It's definitely on
has some
Crunchyroll.
things to say about it, which are apparently they made a movie out of Kaiji also that was on Netflix.
I don't think that the live action movies are supposed to be good. I think they
that's-
got
They never are.
That's
Yeah.
not surprising. Live action.
I'm still watching
adaptations of anime
Cowboy
are always
Bebop.
bullshit.
Can you imagine a live action Cowboy Bebop? Like, that's where I'm
It's
like,
coming.
like,
It just looks like
It's
cosplay.
about to come
It's
out.
like
Raw,
cosplay
like-
Bebop.
Yeah, but Yoko Kanno made new music for it, and
I'll listen to
she's
the
the point
music.
of the show. The music is the point of that show.
I mean,
Well,
I'm
just
gonna
get the
watch
soundtrack.
it, but I'm
Yeah.
sad. That makes me sad.
Jan also said there's this weird thing where the third iteration of an idea happens to have the right timing and can be frustrating to see. Which
I think that
Yeah.
is dead on.
Yeah.
That is how it happens.
Yeah.
Just
Like
the
the
timing.
He's
third-
talking about the show that they're talking.
Oh, it's specific to the show.
Yeah, or like, I mean, he's saying there's, like, a general rule that, like, the third time something gets ripped off is
Right.
usually when society's ready
Ready for
to,
it.
like, be like, oh, this is brilliant.
Like the
Okay,
Matrix,
that totally
right?
is true.
Because that's
Right.
the Dark City and what
I mean,
else?
so much Neuromancer.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I guess there was a lot. There was a lot going into the Matrix. I mean, I like the Matrix, but
Matrix
Right, but
4.
exactly.
That was how I was kind of
I don't know how I
justifying.
feel about
Right,
that yet.
but in a Matrix is the expression of all these other
Right,
like,
right,
things that
kind of
came
worked
before it,
out.
just like more articulated for the mainstream.
It was also interesting how much the Matrix overshadowed other. Like, so I watched Existence the other night,
Oh, okay.
which
Not as good as Videodrome.
No, it's not as good as Videodrome, but it's like a really interesting wild movie
Yeah.
about virtual reality that came out the same year as The Matrix, and
Oh.
it just does like. I don't like when I was watching. It was like I cannot believe that this is not a cult classic that like people are like freak out about this movie because it's so weird.
Well, sometimes
and
it takes
cool.
stuff a little while to
Yeah.
become cult classics.
I think Existence, because it's not as good as Videodrome and is by the same guy and kind of doing the exact same thing.
It's like
it's that it won't ever be as culty because people
maybe
will just
so.
slide into
It is,
Videodrome.
yeah. I mean, I guess it is sort of. I read an interesting theory that like a lot of Cronenberg's movies that are kind of paired, and they'll be like kind of on
Mhm.
opposite ends of his career.
Mhm.
So you'll have a movie like Videodrome, and then like 15, 20 years later, you've got a movie like Existence that's sort of dealing with some of the same ideas, but in a different way. It's maybe also kind of a reflection on some of the like. Like Videodrome has some like misogyny problems and stuff like that, and like Existence is maybe trying to deal with some of that in an interesting way. I don't know. Yeah,
Well, I'll
but
watch
I think
Existence
Existence is really good.
Videodrome's the one
bumped
where
it
he
to the
puts
top of
the
the watch list.
VHS in the vagina that comes on his
That's
tongue.
Videodrome. Yeah.
Yeah. I had to
Existence
look through that
similarly
one
has a
day.
lot of like heterosexual male fear of penetration. there's a lot of like weird penetration stuff that happens.
Yeah.
It's so weird and gross. Like I'm very into it. It's not very scary.
It's not scary.
It's surprising. It's just surprising. There's I won't keep talking about it, but no, it was a movie where like I first saw it when I was like 21 because I went into my living room and my roommates were just putting it on. I was like, "Oh, what are you watching?" They're like, "Oh, it's Existence, sort of like Videodrome." I was like, "I haven't seen Videodrome." I sat down and within 5 minutes I was like, "I'm just gonna watch this whole movie." Like
I've had that experience so many times.
like,
where
I
you
had
think
other
you're gonna watch
plans.
a minute of something and then you just are like, well,
Yeah, I was like in the first 5 minutes, like this is already one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. I just have to keep watching it.
I would have loved to have seen it before I saw Videodrome. I
Yeah.
think that would
Well, I
be
saw Videodrome later, and I was
amazing.
like, well, this fucking rules also.
Yeah.
in a kind of different way, but.
So does Mamelta go on her own adventure in the fish? Does she have like a whole Pinocchio story that
That would be
happens
incredible
off
if
screen
that
now?
happened. I mean, the
Yeah,
fish is
right.
big enough,
if you
right?
don't see her die, she could always show up
Yeah.
later.
I mean, she might not be chewed up by it. She might just be swallowed.
Yeah,
into
swallowed.
She
it.
lights a fire in the belly.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
being eaten by a big fish, I feel like is 99% of the time not fatal. If you read
It's
books,
a symbol of redemption.
yeah.
What in New Sun, who gets eaten by the big in the lake? Fuck. What is it? It's like after the battle. No, it's the hilt of the sword gets eaten.
Yeah.
by the Undine or something.
I guess
The
you
river?
don't. Yeah. Do we know that it's an Undine at that point?
I don't remember.
I feel like nefarious presence under the water in New Sun is Undine. Is like code for Undine.
Typically,
Which, I mean, maybe it is here too. I mean, he describes it as a face and not really as a fish.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, we're saying.
I mean,
fish.
later on, I think he calls it a fish. But
Yeah,
here
but
it
that's
is.
But
him
initially
calling it
called
a
a
fish.
What would
Right,
they call
right.
it? They
That's
Yeah.
that's interesting to
Gotta be a
consider
fish,
then.
listen
Like
to
if they like Undines ended up on this ship somehow.
I mean, why wouldn't they?
Well,
Yeah.
there's also like
You
the
know.
whole Scylla,
Yeah.
Scylla on Earth, Scylla on the world,
Right.
Scylla on blue thing,
Scylla as a bird.
Scylla.
Right, this is the Scylla's zone, right? This
Yes.
lake, so
Yeah.
maybe that is.
The part in the next book where she's mad about the altar with no ashes on it is so awesome.
Yeah.
So I feel like that little tiny bit in the first chapter of the next book is like redeem. It's like justifies treating Scylla like an asshole and a bitch because you get that one scene where you're like, okay, all right, like it's you got a raw deal, so you're upset.
It makes sense to me that dogmatic gods are bitches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I wanted you to do my thing.
Kill
Why didn't you
200
do
babies.
my thing? Yeah. I demand 200 baby dads.
And I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead, but in that same scene, Ox sees her for a second as a girl like 2 years away from womanhood.
Yeah.
So it's like explicitly the Sweet 16, like raging rich girl from. They're in an MTV show that's all about like 16-year-old girls throwing fits because they're.
Yeah.
My super sweet 16.
Yeah.
But she's younger than 16, I think. I think even
Yeah, I think that she's like
more like 12, 13.
2 years away from her period. I think
Yeah.
that's what he means by woman. Like, kind of. I think she's a tween.
I think she's a tween.
Sure. Back
Yeah.
then, though, that was like our 16.
Word.
That's right.
Right, the pre-teenager.
Yeah.
Is somebody saying something about tweens?
Yeah, Johan,
thought
how do you
I
think
saw a
about tweens?
message.
Johan is firing off. He said the Matrix won people over with martial arts stuff, and then it's Gnostic themed. I watched Cosmopolis the other day and felt like between that and Existence, Cronenberg just became a lot less tact and artful, expressing ideas. I agree with that. I think there's an interplay between catching fish and fish catching you. Silk had the dream about not catching gold or even silverfish. In Limna, Lake catches you. Also, it ties into the people jumping into the lake. In Limna, fish catches you. I like Lake catches you. That's fun. Wasn't it like 3 chapters ago? Silk talked about people jumping into the lake and being drawn into it.
Yeah, he did.
We've been bringing that up a lot.
He was going to sacrifice the sphigic stick to the lake, too.
The sphigic stick.
It's hard to say.
Sphigic stick.
I want to know if that man was trying to reference Yakov Smirnoff.
Yes,
Sounded
I think
like
that
it.
was the plan.
Yeah.
All right, good.
And that joke is far bigger than Mr. Smirnov at this point.
Yeah, it's
That's,
transcended the form of Yakov Smirnoff.
But he's the imminent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
he
gotta
is
give credit
basis
where
of
it's
that
due.
joke.
When
the
we're
originator
aware, if we're
of
aware.
that joke format.
Yeah.
Stand-up comedy used to be way easier.
Are we going to talk about the closer?
I don't want to.
Okay.
I mean, we can.
Oh, is that
We
the
were
Dave
about to
Chappelle
talk
thing?
about the books.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, maybe.
You guys have
what?
talked about a lot of things
A
that
lot
I
of-
do not know about.
Open,
All right.
already.
Open up
Well,
that
let's
can
talk
of
about the
worms.
book.
I have to say that we don't have to talk about this, but I do think like the very last like page or 2 pages of this book is like one of my favorite parts in this whole like series.
Oh.
Yeah, I love it.
We're
I
gonna
just
just skip
think it's
all
so.
the way to the end.
I mean, we can't like I don't know. We kind of
We're not linear.
dance
That's-
We can
dance
go
back
back.
and forth, but
It's fine. I don't care.
I just think the way it's pulled off is just really great. Like I think so many things happen in the moments where Crane is killed, where the floater lands, the other general comes out and says to him, "Oh, thank God we've been able to rescue you." Like I feel like so much happens plot wise, but also Wolfe just says so much about war too, and just like senselessness and violence. Like I feel like it just like crystallizes like so nicely in those final moments. Also, the first time I read this, I was on the side of a great big pond, or maybe the bay somewhere. I don't know, somewhere on the eastern shore around here, and it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, just love it.
So the beginning of 13 is like we see Gulo flip. We see him like decide which side he's on. Huh?
Mhm. He's thinking about it.
It's kind of neat because he's not really. He's in what, like 2 scenes, but I feel like his arc is very clear and satisfying. Or maybe he's in 3 scenes up to this point.
There's not a lot of them.
Yeah, there's
but like
really not.
each one really kind of advances
Yeah.
in a dramatic way.
Yeah.
I think his brings up some old and persistent questions for me too. Like he gets a communication from the gods, right, from the window here. And it's just like he gets a direct communication. So is the computer program sentient, I guess, like in the way of programs? And is it like talking to him in this moment, or has it been pre-programmed to discuss this with him? Does
I
that
think
make
that
sense?
I think that the gods have satisfactory intelligence.
It's
Yeah.
well, it seems like it's almost like a machine learning kind of thing. Like
Right.
they
It
I mean,
knows-
I think it's more sophisticated than what we have as machine learning.
Right,
But
right,
it's
right,
like,
right. I guess that's
you
what I
know,
mean
like
by
they-
sentient. Like,
yeah, it's like it's a program that adapts given its input.
and it's adapting to the world of the world, and
Right.
it's seeing this, and it's saying, "Oh," and it's giving this message right now to Gulo.
Is it
I think he has self-awareness.
Yeah.
is it
Right.
Kuipers that's doing this message? I didn't reread this chapter,
It
but
doesn't-
is it Kuiper? I mean, it must be, right? Because not every god is like in the mix right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
Scylla's just kind of just waking up to
Yeah.
that there's an imminent issue. It seems like when she's in Chenille, she seems to be like having beginning to deal with the problem.
Yeah. Kuiper seems likely either.
Yeah,
Kuiper
so it seems
or
like Kuiper's
Scylla.
kind of the only one who's like actively in like altering things that are happening right now with the
Yeah.
Mantian and with
Gulo.
The echidna stuff is later.
Yeah.
yeah.
Gulo interprets it
My
as a
brain
she.
is so hard to keep this like linear right now.
Because
Tell me it-
you're
it's just-
in short sun.
No,
You're past
yeah,
it.
I don't know. I stopped. I started on the reread and I kind of got stalled out. But I just like I can't remember what order things happen.
Gulo
Or-
means Wolverine.
Really,
That's interesting.
I wouldn't have expected that.
Wolverine is like the most intense animal.
I
basically.
guess they. I mean, I guess they
It
are.
means glutton.
Yeah, that kind of makes or ghoul. Kind of same vibe, like eating corpses. Wolverines are all about eating corpses
Oh, yeah.
and chomping up their bones.
Mm. Mm.
He definitely like begins as the ghoul of Quetzal, right? Or who's his like who's he reporting to? Remora? He's reporting to Remora.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like Remora's ghoul, but he becomes something different. And I wonder what the how Gulo relates to what he becomes.
Remora offers him to be prolocutor in
Palustria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's so many.
They were
Fast-
talking about Palustria.
There's like 100 of them.
You never go anywhere.
100 little
Yeah.
girls in
It's
dresses.
it's a brood.
Yeah, flock.
It's a dazzle of zebras.
A dazzle of zebras.
Oh, one of the zebras. passed.
I know. That's why I learned that a group of zebras is called a dazzle. It's 'cause of
Oh.
that dead one.
I don't think that you could call a cluster of Mennonites dazzle.
Dazzle.
Nothing close.
Um,
What's the opposite of dazzle?
A plane.
A plane of Mennonites.
There's a lot of stuff in this, in like now that the Ayuntamiento is like gonna fall, there's so many things that I feel like are important to Wolfe that I thought about when Trump got elected. And people were actually talking about like civil war and revolution, like it was on the table. And I remember thinking about this book and being like, okay. And I remember trying to talk to people like online. Like, remember one of the people I was like, that was like talking like that, like revolution might happen now, was Soderbergh from City Paper. And I remember trying to have a discussion and us just like ships in the fucking night because my thing was like, all right, well, if there's going to be revolution, then the military is the big question. You know, like you can't have a revolution if you just ignore the military because the military like comes and destroys you. They
Yeah.
have more
Yeah, you
weapons.
can't.
Like
The military has nuclear bombs.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
And just everything below, everything between
Robots.
nuclear bombs and what you have.
Yeah.
There's like a wide band there
and then like
before you get anywhere near
We
nuclear
need them on
bombs.
our side.
And it's
if we're
almost the
gonna do-
primary role of the military is to protect against the populace.
And so, like, you go, like, start with the Arab Spring, and then just go back through every revolution, and anything that's successful, either there's like you have like a Laos or something where there's a guerrilla force that can actually overwhelm a underfunded military, or the only other option is the military splits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or-
so,
right,
Yeah.
right, right.
I
or
really
it's a
wanted.
coup, yeah.
I thought that was a really cool thing to start talking about when people were saying like, "Oh, Trump, like this is it. Like, there's going to be a revolution. We have to do it." Like, I was like, "Okay, so what? So
who's our military people? How does that, like, let's imagine how that works. And there was just it was just crickets. And I feel like
But they don't like it.
right. And but like
Neither do I. But
the idea that you would just like to have a fantasy about revolution in it and like not do what Wolfe does here, which is like center the actual like arm of force.
This makes me think about I booked when I was booking lectures. I booked a guy who was in the Battle of Fallujah to come talk about what that was like,
Wow.
and I was astonished that nobody came.
Whoa.
Like it was just like my core friends that came to every single one. Nobody I thought everybody would want to hear what this is like because,
Yeah.
good God, it's coming. You know.
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know. Yeah, it blew my mind that was poorly attended, and it was a fascinating lecture.
But Gula's like the mini, I feel like, case of the army. Where like we see Gulo flip, and it's essential for Gulo to flip. I mean, and this is like he's in this moment, this like violent confrontation, and his actions are like make a huge impression on this crowd, and like they're kind of like legitimize what's happening, even though Gulo's like a little kid who's betraying his secret mission on a sort of spontaneously.
And he's doing it because, like, he barely even has hung out with Perter at this point. All he knows is that people just keep coming to give him jewelry.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
There's
guy,
a lot of silliness in this book. To
It's a
just
silly
skip
as
back
fuck.
to Tim's moment at the end where he's like, and everything's happening. There's one moment that goes, "Uncaldy silk!" Lightning flared across the sky. That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
cartoon.
It's
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
well, the fish face.
But-
is a cartoon
but, I mean, it
moment,
makes
too.
Yeah,
sense.
totally.
It makes sense if Horn is writing it, you know. Like
Exactly.
He's
Exactly.
like sees Silk as a superhero. So
Exactly.
The Quetzal stuff in the next chapter is all cartoon. It's like
Mhm.
everything Quetzal does is
At
like
the
a
opening of the next book.
yeah, the whole business, and it ends with Quetzal throwing open a window, and it's like cloak streaming behind him, like it's like Count Duckula kind
Sure.
of like moment.
yeah, well,
Or
I mean,
Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Ooh,
Yeah.
one of my favorite movies.
Oh,
One of my
so
favorite movie
good.
titles.
Also one of my favorites.
it's really
Great
good.
title, you're right.
Or I mean, even earlier with Lemur, like Lemur is just such a like
Absolutely.
anime villain, like self-aware anime. villain.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and we're getting a lot of that, which I thinking about it through the lens of Horn is like, yeah, clearly like this teenager is like, yeah, and then he was like this. He was really big, scary, but in a cool way.
And then they kill his body, and he's like, no.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Teenage boys. It's crazy how much of our world is focused through the mind of teenage boys.
Oh my
right
God.
now.
Just
It's-
teenagers.
Out of control.
Specifically teenage boys, I think.
Wait, say that it says.
It's amazing how much of our world is focused through the minds of teenage boys right now.
Well, you could
Yeah.
argue that a lot of that's because a lot of adult men refuse to grow up.
Yes, I think that is exactly. They
So
they,
you
they just
just-
want to stay 15 forever.
Yeah, stuck in being teenage boy.
It's not a
And the people who successfully do it are the ones who are most rewarded. The ones who are like, I'm going to space.
Yeah.
Right, like any moves towards some kind of like, you know, maturity, like building a media empire or something is then like all in service of the boy.
Yeah.
What does the
I
boy
think
want?
that all of the rituals that
It's
make
so
you into a
sexy.
man are now all secret and private.
Exactly.
They're all like-
or non-existent.
Yeah, they're not on the table for regular people. You have to be involved in an very old institution and probably an old family to have any kind of proper ritual that says, all right, you are leaving childhood behind.
Or to be ignored. If a gaggle of kids can be ignored, they do it themselves. There's an amazing religion that has evolved among the homeless children of Miami
Whoa.
that
Yeah, you
involves
brought this
like Bloody Mary and Spider-Man, and Bloody Mary is the Virgin Mary, and you can't believe it once you are older than 12.
Nice.
Nice.
It's
an amazing.
Like you're getting kicked out. At
They,
some point.
everybody's like, if you're younger than 12, this is real. Once you hit 12, it's not real anymore.
It's some Chronicles
Satan's
of Narnia
taking
shit. You know.
Yeah.
Or the holy hues. Although it's not an
Oh,
age,
yeah.
it's having
But
sex.
that sounds like an organic religion built up amongst youth.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
It's
It's
a
just something
true
that-
folk religion.
And I
Yeah.
mean, it reminds me of how, like, I didn't watch rated R movies when I was in the second grade, but I was encountering for the first time the bad boys that did. And so the people like me suddenly were learning all the folklore of Chucky and Freddy and the Gremlins. And so we bastardized it, and it became a thing. That is a very similar thing. Like, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah. Like when you just hear, especially when you're young, your imagination is so powerful that like even just hearing about, like hearing somebody's like partial recollection of Candyman or something is enough for your brain to just go.
Yeah.
And then you invent a new version of that exists for you.
Mhm.
Brings us back to Elon Musk.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I've heard about a Neil Stephenson book, and that's how we're gonna fix the future with the thing I already like. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a very potent force. Is like childhood play. Like, do
Mhm.
you remember like hanging out with friends like around, I don't know, like 8, 9 maybe, like, or maybe 10, I don't know. And I remember going into the woods with a group of friends once, and we just sort of became absorbed into some kind of fantastical play situation, much more natural and immersive than any kind of anything else I've probably ever done in my whole life, where it just kind of like became like a very realistic
Yeah.
experience, like role playing, but more actualized. I feel like,
So
like,
LARPing, baby LARPing.
yeah, right. But there's always like a degree of removal, like when you're like role playing.
Yeah.
In fact, probably a great deal of degree of removal. And I feel like, I don't know, as a kid, sometimes
I
that
think-
wasn't.
I think children
there.
are
That's
able-
a religious experience.
Yeah,
Right? It's
right.
like when people are having religious experience, that's what's happening.
Right.
Yeah,
They're,
when
like,
you're
immersed
able
in
to
that.
integrate these things that are like purely, ideal isn't like non-physical. Like
Yeah.
you're able to just subsume that into however you're thinking or feeling in a way that adults really can't.
Yeah. Or maybe they can, but like through like ritual and stuff.
Or
and,
through like conspiracy, like there are ways that
Yeah.
adults do it, but it ends up being this kind of like there's a logic to it that I think doesn't exist for children. Like
Well, I think the freshness of a child's mind allows you to kind of synesthetically experience abstract ideas as indescribable physical qualities. In a Lovecraftian kind of way.
Yeah, like you're not trying to convince yourself of anything, or you're not trying to rationalize a feeling that you have. Like it's
Right.
just happening.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it's just
you
a
can
thing
just
that's
accept it.
happening. And as adults, it's always they're much like deeper layers of like trying to rationalize, like trying to find external reasons for something that you feel internally. Or
Right.
like there's just there are a lot more mediating aspects between
Yeah.
this like kind of abstract and your physical reality that you're having to kind of
more projection or more control, more desire to control.
you're trying to piece things into a puzzle
Yeah.
in a way that children it's not a puzzle.
Right.
Like
It's really because they're so
like,
used to being like, I don't know shit anyhow. I've never experienced anything, so they're just used to things being like, oh.
There's
a new thing.
unlimited things left to learn when you're a
Yeah,
kid. There
yeah.
doesn't seem to be any end of getting new information. And at a certain point, when you're responsible for yourself, you have to actively work against that. Like you have to actively keep making up a story that convinces yourself that nothing you don't know is important.
Right? Do you not know what you're talking about? Like, I'm sorry to ask a stupid question, but like, no, if you have to ask a stupid question, that's how you end up being smart.
Yeah.
Like if you don't ask the stupid question, that's when you're stupid because you don't learn the thing that you didn't know that you clearly should have.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a dangerous thing.
It's what like assimilation is like coming to understand all of the useless information we can't bring into our interactions with each other because it doesn't further the like plan of society.
I read a book last year about it's like a Jungian book about like modern masculinity. But one thing that it talks about a lot is that the reason that, and this was written like in the early '90s, I think, but the reason that a lot of adult men seem to be kind of stuck in this like teenage boy mode, or like really unable to kind of grapple with their feelings about their parents, or like have adult relationships with their parents, it's because our culture no longer has initiation as a foundational aspect of growing up and maturing. And it seems like having initiation is a way of linking the child to the adult in a way that maintains some amount of that mystery. And instead of you kind of like being abruptly shunted into a world that doesn't seem to really jive with you, you are being brought into a world that then takes into account this sort of the spiritual and like more soft psychological aspects of your childhood, and gives you a way to incorporate that into this kind of mature adult being.
Right, or for better or for worse. I mean, I feel like another way of saying that is just like, oh, we just like have less community, like less communal roles. And so I feel like in the past, in the great past, whatever you want to call it, like I feel like small communities had more roles in mind for individuals, and say like, okay, well now you're at this age, you're going to start swinging an axe, and now you're at this age, you're going to have a kid, and now you're at this age, you're going to go out into the woods, and like, for better or worse, I don't think it's worse necessarily.
There's a clear path into
the roles. Yeah.
The problem is that the people who are really good at this kind of thing are the right-wing people.
Right. Yes.
And that creeps the left-wing people out.
Yeah.
So they actively try to... And I mean... And it is very easy for it to fall... It's a weird, intimate thing between adults and children. And that's why the Boy Scouts is in trouble right now. You know?
Right.
Like, it's very easy for it to get too weird. And so the liberals are like, well, then we have to get rid of it entirely.
No, like you got to figure out the parts that are effective, and then, try to approach them in a way that's not just like indoctrinating.
Well, we need to completely replace the idea of power with the idea of responsibility. Not to get too Spider-Man about things, but
No, it's
when
legit.
when a Boy Scout leader has power over these boys, he will rape them. But when he's responsible for these boys, he will not. This is what Frank Herbert talks about in the beginning of God Emperor Dune. Like he talks about, and I mean he uses the gender as a model here, and I think that if we think about it as the accultured femininity and masculinity rather than penises and vaginas, it works. Whatever. But a feminine-leaning army is one that feels responsible for the populace. So when war doesn't happen, they just do things to take care of.
Which makes
the
100%
populace.
sense.
Yeah.
A masculine-leaning army has to conquer. The Yang army has to go out and conquer. So if there's no war, they're going to conquer the populace.
Right.
Initiation is like, I like how you said it was like a door. It's like a gate, because I feel like without it, in our culture now, you basically at a certain point are told, yeah, everything you used to think as a kid's wrong and you were stupid. And so like fix your brain so that you can be with the world that's real. And like initiation doesn't do that to you. It says like you were in that world.
It's integrated.
Yeah. And now you're coming through this door into another world, and it doesn't denigrate like what you felt and believed as a child.
But it's also like initiation never ends if it's a real initiation. So like the moment you start doing it, you're doing it for the rest of your life. And yeah, I guess that's part of how it's integrated. Is like now this group of people, you're always doing this, but you start to be doing it to the next group of people that comes in. It weaves the numinous
fabric of
Yeah,
society.
and the emphasis of our generation was like, oh, you'll find your own way. Like, you can do whatever you want, is more or less probably what all of us were told.
This is the
growing up.
boomer zoomer thing, right?
Yeah,
The
and-
boomers'
Right.
parents were like, come work in the shop.
Yeah, right.
College is only 3% of whatever, blah, 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 you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
the zoomers, they're like, where's your $500,000? No jobs for you. Get out the fucking house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just interesting. Like, it's just
For college.
the emphasis is on the individual, and so you wouldn't go through, you know, especially like in our kind of community or whatever kind of communities we came from, like you wouldn't go through any kind of initiation ritual that would prescribe to you what you would do with your life. That would
Hey.
stifle you, right? I mean, from that perspective, right? Like,
Yeah, well,
and so it's been put on us, and I feel like there's actually kind of like a wave of anxiety and awareness among whatever generation we are.
Well, we're not having more
There
children.
really is, yeah, exactly. I mean, we're really subverting like a lot about, I don't know, how societies work, for
This
better
makes
or
me
worse.
think too of the Guild of the Torturers and how
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
there's been a atrophy in our like value of craft, and that I feel like kind of like the boomers with that idea of come work at the shop was like you'll be okay if you work on a craft and you have a useful craft and you've worked at it long enough to be competent at it.
Also true.
Whereas like at a certain point in the 80s, I want to say there was this kind of launch into the thing, which I think is like an impression that media gave and then has only intensified since the 80s, is like the people that succeed is because they're special and they
Right.
have something in them that was always going to be rewarded and that we need to reward and that will inevitably be, those people will rise. And it's completely unconnected from craft.
well, I think
Well,
at that point also you're seeing a major shift from labor into like management as this like worthwhile. It's not a craft anymore, and it's not even really a skill. It's
Yeah.
just sort of a place where you end up that is comfortable.
It's a position in a hierarchy.
Yeah, it's more about the power element of it, and way less about any kind of nurturing of personal efficacy and labor, and
Well, and the role of a person in society has moved from like a production to a consumption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it's
yeah,
like,
and so then you
it's
become
like
a manager
you're
of
productive
consumption.
by consuming. Like consuming is like you're producing consumption. Is like what you're producing.
Well, I think that the greatest generation came home from World War II, having saved the planet, and we're like, if we all come together, or at least telling themselves,
Right,
that,
right, right.
Yeah,
if we all
exactly.
come together, we can do the most amazing things. Let's make all these babies that will be wonderful and
Cover the whole
amazing.
world in asphalt.
And then those babies went to Vietnam.
Right.
That war was not like that. That war was like, all those college kids got to get out of Vietnam. When I get home and have babies, I'm sending them to college.
Yeah, all I got out
You
of Vietnam
don't you
was
ever learn
a
any
heroin
usable
addiction.
trades. Become useless, because otherwise they're going to send you to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, like even when I was a kid, like I feel like my parents had this kind of. It didn't happen a lot, but occasionally, be like, well, you never know if the draft's going to come back.
Right.
So you need to make sure that like you're able to argue for your exemption. Like you need to make sure that you're not going to get drafted for whatever reason. Like figure out your passive or your
They'll
conscientious
They'll
objector
never bring
stuff.
back the draft.
No, they won't.
It's too,
We have robots now.
Yeah,
We
we've
don't
got
need
robots. You don't
well,
need it, but
it's you just can't. You can't have the population, the general population, giving a shit about what we do with our soldiers.
Mhm.
right.
Like you can't.
Oh,
You can't
definitely.
be having
yeah,
that.
if everybody.
That's the only
Because
way
it
we
works
do what
poorly
we-
in Vietnam.
Yeah, exactly. The only way we do what we do is because you're like, well, you signed up for it.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
you
it's
can't
all
be like,
away.
oh, what if my kid goes?
You don't have to think about it.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
not here.
Yeah.
Yep. Vietnam.
It was bad.
Rambo.
It's a bad idea. But it did give us Rambo, so I guess it was worth
It
it.
all
And the
worked out.
Punisher.
It was a wash.
yeah.
Got some good movies, so
I love Platoon.
Now,
yeah, Platoon, definitely.
Actually, that's true. I think a lot of the best war movies are about Vietnam.
Well, I think because that was a war that you can have a critical,
Yeah.
like you
It's
can
like the only one
critically
you're allowed to
examine
criticize.
Vietnam
Right.
because it was objectively a huge fucking mistake.
It was also the war that was beginning to be mythologized when we were children. So
Right.
for us,
That's true.
Well, there-
Vietnam is G.I. Joe, you know.
But there are a lot of like war movies that are World War II, World War One, but they are or even Korea, like fucking South Pacific,
Yeah.
is a musical about the Korean War, and it
Right.
sucks. But like
I beg to differ.
I mean, it's amazing in some ways, but it is also like terrifying in a lot of ways.
Yes,
But
yeah.
but like that era of movies, it's like no, we're not going to criticize anything about these war efforts because they're unambiguously like a good thing that we're participating in. Obviously, we now can kind of look back and be like, I don't know about all of this, but at that point in media,
But
there's
this-
no way of doing that.
This attaches back up with the initiation conversation
Mhm.
and Columbus Day. Because, mythologizing our war exploits is part of creating the fabric of a national legend, which then plays into our initiation rites, which is why I played Rambo as a 5-year-old, you know?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, definitely.
So, and it's Columbus because we rewrite what Columbus did and make him into a superhero, because after the Civil War, they were like, we need to start having a national mythology so we don't have another civil war. And
Yeah.
that's why we think all the wrong things we think about Columbus. They
Mhm.
picked him to be a god for us.
Mhm. And it's admirable that at least we're starting to rethink as a nation that ever so slightly, with opposition. But
But as we kill our gods and don't replace them, we're starting another civil war.
Right.
We need to have like
to put something-
Or
it's
someone
why it's a
like
problem
Elon
that
Musk steps
our
in.
gods are cartoon weapons dealers. We need to think of a better one.
Yeah,
that can still be popular.
And
Yeah.
it seems like that's why that's a big reason why there's a lot of hesitance from the kind of center right and center left
Right.
to embrace any kind of truly critical theory, because it also means that you got to get ready for some things to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
You got to get ready for some things to be inconvenient.
Right, and some destabilization of
Yeah, it could be. I think that's
Yes.
the center line is like we can make things better, but also we don't have to change anything,
Yeah.
and that doesn't work.
Right.
I had to, for Fiverr, I had to write a couple papers on shamanism and voodoo. And it was that vague of a topic, so I got to really go hog wild. And for both of those topics, something interesting I noticed was the cultural appropriation of both of those things. And the big problem with it, in both cases, it seemed to me, is that people who are actually engaged in these, the people to whom these practices were native, a major component of it was fear.
Yeah.
And when the ladies that I went to shamanism workshops at Seven Rays Bookstore are doing it, it's about cuteness and comfortability and
Right.
a warm hug, and they've removed all the fear, and that renders it useless. We have to be afraid.
Fear is like the easiest way for the mind, like for you to delude yourself into believing something.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah, well,
you can't. I maybe love too, but
Love
they're the
comes
same
after
thing.
fear.
Yeah.
You appreciate, you get love as a baby because your mom's going to feed, you get your familial love, and you just think that's the way things are. And when you experience fear through your initiation and then get love again, you're like, oh, now I realize why this is important.
Yeah, every good initiation has like a near-death experience where you go lose yourself to fear, and then the group comes afterwards and saves you. And so
The
you-
monsters are revealed to be your mother's brothers.
Yes, the Chapel Perilous, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was just gonna say the when you're talking about the bookstore ladies or whatever, the modern day, the new age movement, basically is what you're talking about. And the thing about that is that's doing the same thing as that Elon Musk thing.
Exactly.
Where you're like, I'm gonna like make this into like my like I'm gonna take this and make it like form it around my what makes me feel good and like
It's
what my
soothing.
worldving is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all
So
a
that I don't
soothing
feel
impulse.
I don't want to be challenged. Except
Yeah.
in the sense like some kind of very personal like self betterment like you know,
Challenge
I'm
to love
like I'm
yourself.
working on myself.
Right,
That
right.
kind of thing. But that's not never like that challenging. But I mean
It's about
not-
hugs. It's about hugs.
Exactly.
They rush through the fear. It's just a scary poster on the door, and then we're all going to go hug inside.
Yeah.
Well,
No rush to
I
that
think
part.
that in some ways the fear does like the hugging is a response to
Hugging.
a kind of fear, but that fear is more it's anxiety. It's a like bourgeois fear of kind of just of discomfort.
Well, I think it still goes unconfronted. You're supposed to move through the fear to get
Right.
to the love, not turn
It's-
around and run back
But it's
to...
putting a blanket over it
Yeah.
instead of like spending time with it.
Yeah.
in a serious way.
I mean, if we really want to, you're supposed to love the fear,
Right.
and that's how you conquer it. I think the most challenging, if God is love, the most challenging thing for a Christian to do is to love the hardest thing to love, Satan. All Christians should try to love Satan,
Hell yeah.
and then you're a great Christian if you can do that.
All right.
Hell yeah.
Sounds great.
Makes sense.
That's really cool.
I do not consider myself a Satanist.
Well, I don't think
I don't.
that
yeah,
that
that's
means
fine.
the same thing.
yeah. I don't.
Just wanted to say that after I said the thing I had just said.
gotta love
That you have to
Satanists,
love
not a
Satanists.
Satanist.
But do Satanists love Satan? I don't think so.
I think Satanists love themselves.
Yeah, is that
That's-
even like a fucking actual thing?
I don't
Yeah.
think so.
I mean,
I think it's a
I think there's a
joke.
couple
Yeah.
of different
There-
organized groups
there
that are
is-
Satanists
I-
that
yeah.
believe various things.
There are
Yeah, but
Satanists
they're
do a
doing
lot
the
of
same
things.
thing
It's a
as the
social club.
bookshop people.
Totally,
Like
totally,
it's not
totally.
a thing, a real
Yeah.
thing.
No.
It's like a social thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah. It's also about hugs, but you're wearing all black.
Right, exactly.
Maybe they
But,
tried
like-
to make it a
But
thing
there
at some
are
point.
like the
It's edgy hugs.
the like internet atheist kind of Satanist. But
Yeah.
then I think there are
Oh my god,
Satanists
that
who,
is
like,
a good point.
I think there are Satanists who like abuse their children and kill things.
The
Like,
real Satanists are
Yeah.
the new.
Not as much
Yeah.
as the FBI wanted us to believe.
No,
in the
Right.
but I think those
90s.
people. But I think like there that just has
I think
to exist
I think that the
somewhere.
Satanic
But
Panic of the
not-
80s probably created.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's
Yes.
pedophiles
People were like,
that are
"That
like, oh,
sounds
that's how I
awesome."
get to do
Yeah,
it.
people
Yeah,
are like, this
it-
sounds so fucking
It gave
cool.
it
I'm
gave
gonna
people
do
a
it.
key and an
Yes.
aesthetic
Yeah.
that they may have not had before.
Yes,
Oh,
and
that's fun.
it's
But like, I
because
do think that the
if
like,
people were
liberal
like,
pedophile ring
this is
doesn't
the
have
worst,
any-
scariest thing that we can think of, and then people were like, worst, scariest thing you can
On
think
a
of,
little
eh? That's my new
weird
aesthetic
thing.
because
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
kind of person I am.
Totally.
And it
totally,
only
totally.
takes, you only need one real instance. You only need the one actual cult, which is like the Son of Sam one that definitely existed. And
Mhm.
then it only takes that one for people to say, well, I live in this big society. If I've heard of this thing, it has to be everywhere. You know, like it's
Yeah.
impossible to conceive of a unique phenomenon that you heard of when you live in like a mass media obsessed society.
Totally.
I've got this information about this thing that exists. If I have this information, it must be useful. It's only useful if it's generally true.
The thing about the Son of Sam cult is that it was a worldwide phenomenon. That like inspired Charles Manson as well.
Is it the Process Church? Or
Yeah.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, but I still I didn't mean to say that to undermine your point. I agree with your point 100%. I just also love the Church of the Process. That's a crazy
Yeah.
thing.
I still think that it's one example. It was a worldwide phenomenon. It wasn't like disparate. It's a small group of people.
It's
Even
an
though
extremely small group
Yeah.
of people that many times
Yeah.
should have died in a hurricane in Mexico, and for no and often because they were able to prey on these rich people and get a shitload of money, they were able to survive. But yes, it was a tiny group of people that were able to go all over the place
Yeah.
and influence all these terrible people.
Yeah. That's what I mean by the one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's one. It wasn't like there was competing, disconnected. It wasn't like Al Qaeda.
No. Yeah. It was a small group of rich lunatics.
You know, all this is good to talk about and like to think about while reading Wolfe, and it's relevant to Wolfe. It's just like, where do the ideas in your head and the voices in your head, however you define that, come from? Like, you know, like who's telling you that? And I think it's just a thing to be aware. I mean, at different points, different people throughout history have had different kinds of things inside of their heads. You know, different information and ideas, and where does that come from, and what does that cause you to do, and what's your relationship to it?
This is why I watch so much TV. I
Yeah.
think TV is God talking to me.
Right, and I think
Yeah.
Wolfe would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, certainly he wrote 4 books about it.
yeah,
There's like a pretty
I
like
did. That's what it's
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
one-to-one relationship between the gods in this book and the ideas of a culture that were like
I think he's just stretching.
for an
Is that Kenny or Mark?
made for a different environment. The world's changed a lot, and you're getting this kind of corrupted program that you have to, you know, like the gods have their own agenda as little kids from the you know, the Short Sun world, and then they have an agenda as these copied programs, and then there's hundreds of years pass by in which they're in mainframe and things that they didn't really plan on happening go down on the world.
Mhm.
And then you have you know, like people trying to relate to the program still. The programs are still in their life, and the programs still have like plans for them and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it does feel like a pretty, I don't know, it's like a pretty,
I totally missed Kenny just walked in. Did he come through or did he
Yeah,
go to
he
the
came,
side?
yeah.
Okay.
This is what results in the war in
There he
heaven,
goes.
right? This is generations of gods fighting. This is
Farmer's market.
Making
Zeus
those
killing
sounds. I don't know
Cronus,
where he's
Yeah.
and Cronus castrating Uranus,
probably going
and
to
so
7-Eleven.
that I think.
and I mean, in a way, people are making Silk into a new god to deal with the old programs.
In a very literal way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They gotta, like, these old programs aren't helping us as much as they should. We don't understand them as well. They're maybe meddling in ways that, like, have nothing to do with us anymore.
We need to reboot the franchise.
Yeah.
This Doctor Who's a lady.
right.
Gotta shake it up.
Yeah.
Piss off some nerds.
Yep.
Next James Bond's gonna be a trans.
Yep.
Which would be great.
I can see that being cool.
But
Yeah, it'd be
it's gonna
amazing.
be something like that. Like I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know,
they're
absorbed
gonna
kind of
do some kind of
article
controversial
recently that-
casting.
You know how that'll work, though, is that Hollywood always does it where they're like, controversially progressive thing that is justified by a
Yeah.
basic fundamental argument that is not progressive at all.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
It's the
yeah,
same-
it's still
the
like
same
war
every time.
propaganda.
Yeah.
Right. Totally.
It's like the,
The
you
Marvel
know, like
movies.
the triumph of Kamal.
More
Like,
female CEOs.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Ladies can be boys too.
That's
And
right.
now the
Yeah.
trans people can be boys.
Yeah, everybody's boys.
Everybody gets to be a boy. Everyone can be a
That's
12-year-old
true
boy.
feminism.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
You get to be a boy. You get to be a boy. We're all equally teenage boys.
Just like when you destroy gender and realize that it's fake, what else would happen except everyone becoming a boy?
Yeah.
Or as we call it, regular.
Well,
yeah,
we-
exactly.
Well, we set it up so that's the only good option. So,
I mean, they are having a lot of fun.
yeah.
Hey,
It is.
can't argue with that.
Yeah. Just hot wheeling around, drinking beer.
It is hard to hate on someone whose horrible pop punk band is happening because they're all girls, and and you just be like, I mean, the music it's terrible, and it was never, like it's not contributing anything. No one will remember it in a couple of years, but like you can't hate the horrible pop punk band. It's
This
a
is
pop
what I
punk
feel
band.
about Girl Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Girl
it's not
Busters.
it's not nerdy. It's not as funny as the other ones, but I really appreciate what they were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that what they were doing, they did a really good
If
job.
if the nerds get really pissed off about it, there's at least some amount of good happening.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna give it a blanket thumbs up, but
Right.
if it's pissing off some people who are pedantic,
Mhm.
dogmatic shitheads, about media properties,
Right.
then I think we're doing an okay thing at least.
I mean, it just definitely wasn't for fans of the original Ghostbusters movies, and why the hell should it be?
Yeah.
I think though it's
Who cares
important
about
that when
Those
you say,
movies already exist.
Yeah, we don't
You can
need-
just watch them
Yeah.
again.
but it's like it's funny that you say we're doing something because it's not.
Oh,
we.
no.
It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
like when Hollywood does these things, it's
I mean,
like
we as a human species,
Yeah, as a culture, I
I
guess.
partially take responsibility for
for the new
the
Ghostbusters.
entirety of the world.
I think
A
that
little bit, right?
Hell yeah, why not?
You got a little bit of a hand in it.
We're supposed to live like Jesus Christ. I'm dying for
We're,
everyone's sins.
we're all stirring this pot a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
I do. I mean,
I think that
Yeah.
Los Angeles gets too much credit as representing something that's occurring outside of Los Angeles and New York.
sure,
Yeah.
totally.
That it's like the Process Church. There's a very specific group of people that are like directly influencing others, and because of the way they influence people, your brain is forced to generalize.
And that's another like right wing quote unquote like argument that actually has some water, is that they're like, well, a handful of media conglomerates are trying to brainwash the whole, you know, like society.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah.
Well, it's-
Yeah.
But I also, just for me personally, to get through life with my morality intact, I need to remember that I'm always a part of a they, and ultimately we're all part of the same they, them. You know, like when they are coming to get us, and this is a result of them, I want to recognize that I'm part of them. In that case.
Right. I lost track.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I
But
haven't
no,
talked
no,
about
I
this
didn't.
out loud a lot.
the thing about
It's like
generalizations.
a Dr. Bronner's
The
bomb.
thing about generalizations is that like
Right.
the more people that are in them, the less anything applies to any one person in that group.
Right, you have to remember both things
Yeah.
at the same time.
So-
That I am an individual, and that's why I'm a part of this group, and both of those things are happening. And if I can't be responsible for what Hollywood is doing in some way, if I can't try to put my art out there and have that be part of the spectrum of what Hollywood is doing, and not maybe draw people away from Hollywood, then I'm only being consumed by Cthulhu, and that scares me. I have a penknife, but I'm gonna go up against the dragon.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No. I think I follow. Yeah, what you're saying. Yeah. And I think as artists, you always, and not that everyone identifies as that, but I think if you like are making creative work, you're in some way in some kind of conversation or correspondence with the greater media landscape. Right?
Yeah. And yeah, I watch all this TV. I watch every Marvel movie. In that way, I'm a part of that. Maybe not you, although you're affected by it in other ways.
Oh, I'm definitely affected by
Like,
it. Yeah.
and so
I think about
I-
it a lot for someone who doesn't watch any of them.
Well, it's, I
I
mean,
mean, that's what I'm
it's
talking
a-
about. Like, we're responsible for it too.
It's a very-
those memes travel through.
I mean, we
us.
talk about it literally every meeting. We end up talking
Yeah.
about like Disney and Marvel movies, and I think Connor is maybe the only one of us that keeps up with any of it.
Yeah.
And like we just, but we still, it's a part
Right.
of
Right.
our culture in a way that is unavoidable.
It is. I mean, I think it comes to what you were saying, where it's like we dethroned,
Thank you.
we've started throwing off the gods, and they're not being like the dethroning of the gods doesn't have a part of that process that is also replacing them. So then business of entertainment is coming in to replace them, and that's why I feel like we always end up talking about Disney and superheroes. It's because that's the
The new
force
god.
that's moving into the vacuum. Yeah.
Mhm.
That.
But I still disagree with that idea, though. But we've had this conversation before. But I feel like that's just an interpretation of like the god system. But the actual god system is actually harder to see.
Oh no, I agree with that. I think that it's like the folk religion. It's not like
Yeah.
there's a deeper religion where the gods are like technology and
Yeah,
the
right.
future and stuff like that.
And then there's the Tao in the center of it all. There's 4 layers of gods for each element. Right? The outside layer is the earth gods and the air gods, and the air gods are Marvel, the water gods are money, and reality's at the center of fire. Right?
everything's 4.
Yeah. I feel like if we were on the world, the different gods would be like Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime.
Well,
HBO
Hulu
Max.
itself, like the name is evocative of Cthulhu, and
Yeah.
when that service first appeared, they had like a tentacle motif. I don't know if you remember that, but
Oh.
like 2009 or whatever, when Hulu was a thing,
Huh.
they used a tentacle in their advertising.
You think they're
Whoa.
aware, or
I feel like they had to have been. And at that point, it was.
I mean, if
it-
there's a tentacle and it's called Hulu, like what's the
Yeah, like it's there. And it was.
somebody in the company.
Oh,
did
definitely.
that on
And that
purpose.
was a point where Hulu was a joint venture between multiple media. So it was like ABC, Fox,
Oh, I remember
NBC,
that.
like all kind of going in together on a streaming service.
And they're
Which-
all Disney now.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's completely a different thing now. But like at that stage, it was kind of this weird like entity. You know, it was
Yeah.
it was an entity that was comprised of multiple
yeah.
other kind of like Leviathan like entities, and yeah, I don't know. There's something to it.
That's cool.
That's
Which, of course, now it
I mean,
ends
it's
up being
not-
like maybe like the least good streaming service. But,
Right.
but like,
right.
you know.
One of my favorite things that we ever did was like when we talked through the symbolism of Amazon and Apple, their names, and how they relate to the Garden of Eden, and how they're both kind of so sinister when you like put that together. That was I feel like we came up with that in real time in
I
Did we talk about the two Iberias in that conversation?
Iberia,
I don't think
Spain.
so.
Yeah, so Spain, Iberia is where the Garden of the Hesperides and the Golden Apples are. But Georgia and Armenia are also called Iberia, and that's where Colchis and the Golden Fleece is. And that's where the sun rises and the sun sets in the Iberian Peninsula. And I don't know what any of that means. But it's something I've been thinking really hard about for years.
Didn't I feel like
Keep
there was
us posted.
There was another brand name I feel like that we brought into the equation. It wasn't just Amazon and Apple. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Oh, and the Amazons lived in that area,
Oh, wow.
in the eastern Iberia.
Oh.
And apples are
Amazon is
so,
such a
like,
fucked up name for that company. Now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's like
Without
like the
breasts
Hulu
is
thing
what
is
it
like
means,
kind of
literally.
clever in a way, I guess. But like Amazon, that sucks. They shouldn't call it that. The
Google-
Amazon like gives so much to the world, and I guess that's why they probably called it that, because it gave plentifully to the
Again, it
world.
literally means without breasts, though.
Or,
No
yeah, but no one
breasts.
thinks about it.
No
like
breasts
that.
allowed.
That is interesting.
That's an
Everyone,
interesting
turn
wrinkle.
everyone into boys.
All boys in space.
Yep.
Space boys.
Space boys now.
Oh, nice.
Hey! Want some
Coming
Pringles?
through.
Hail Gene.
There you go.
Thank
There
you
he
so much.
is.
Original.
Or our sponsor.
That's him
Thank you.
with his mustache.
Apples and
Thanks,
Pringles.
Kenny.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we're
like
full
after
on
soccer
our
practice.
kindergarten.
This is a
Full
weird
on
combo.
kindergarten snacks going down right now. I love Pringles though.
Yeah,
Not gonna lie.
Google.
I love Pringles.
Sponsor.
Google.
Thank you, Keen.
Google.
Look at your
presenting
illustration
Pringles
of the Pringles on the side. Isn't that nice?
You're rolling that around
Right next to the mic. You
microphone.
guys like that? You like that?
Listen to the sound of the Pringles.
That's a pretty cool part of it.
That is really nice.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I like that.
Wow.
String cheese!
There's only two. You gotta give. Oh, Tim doesn't eat it.
That's true, but it's all right. We need like
Right,
cartons
yeah.
of like chocolate
No, we
milk
have
too.
more. We have more string cheese. If you guys want, you should take them because
Well, I am definitely.
everyone
milk
can
eaters,
have. Like, do you want one? You want one?
No,
You
no,
want one?
I don't do lactose.
Yeah, I kind of want to.
I'll get one.
Thank you.
I think Google fits in a little bit into this equation by Google being an unimaginably big number, which is kind of related to Cthulhu, I think.
Although,
Right.
It's like the Cthulhu of data.
But
I-
also
it's-
Google's parent company being Alphabet,
Yeah.
yeah.
which is like it seems like their thing is very I like there's a mathiness, you know, like I think Google's thing is about like making the components that make everything up,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think
numbers and letters.
the legend of Google, though, is that name is not supposed to be about the number. It's that the man went home and asked his child, what will the company be called? And he was like, Google, and it's spelled differently and everything.
Yeah, I guess
believe.
the number is spelled GOOG.
Asking
Again,
child.
I don't
L.
think this undermines what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's just because, like, clearly everybody thinks of the number, so
Well, and they leaned into that too, even in the early stages, like with the way that, like, the search results, the O's going out.
It's a funny idea that, like, the child coming up with it would refute the idea that has something to do with number, because I would think that, like,
I don't think it does.
I would think, yeah, John caging a little kid for data would connect it more to the collective thing that already exists than it would create a sui generis
I entirely agree.
concept.
Also, I love the idea of the kid coming up with it, because then all of our interpretations afterwards were created afterwards. You know what I mean? It's like, that's just like, it's kind of Wolfian, right? Like, if you think about the word Google as a symbol, the meaning is created afterwards, after the symbol. The symbol was created by a child.
It's very.
Well,
it's very
that's
scary.
exactly what I'm arguing against. Is that children don't create sui generis symbols. They have a more pure access to the symbols that are already
Right,
with
right,
us.
right. Yeah. It's like, looking at the same thing down different sides of the tunnel.
So on the boat is the next thing after Gulo.
Google-o.
Patera self pulled out of the water.
Yeah.
Says we have to find Crane. Crane's already there. It's this exact chapter in which Crane explains everything, right? About like Crane gives his last explanation of this exact chapter and then dies. So we learn about Crane's money belt being a lie later in this same chapter, right?
I remember him having money on him, but what is the money belt lie?
He
tells Silk, he's like, I gave these fishermen a card. And Silk's like, you what? And he's like, I mean, I have this money belt that Lemur somehow didn't find when he searched me.
Yeah.
And he's like, And he recognizes that the back of the head is the back of the head of the driver. The sailor is the driver.
Yeah.
And then in the hotel or whatever.
Got it. That was
Crane's
a
like,
lie.
all right, yeah.
I didn't
You
put
got
that.
Wait, but why did he lie about that? I haven't.
Because he thought that Silk wouldn't
Still
know.
being a spy.
I was like-
okay.
Didn't want to blow his cover.
Will it or whatever.
Yeah.
Husan.
Oh, the
Yeah,
the
Husan.
driver. Yeah.
Which sounds
Gave him a bunch of
astonishingly
money.
like Jason.
Didn't want to blow his
Sorry,
cover,
Jason.
the driver's
Yeah.
cover.
Yeah, or just
I think-
just like
I
his
think Jason
whole
Willis-
He just kind of
operation.
like stayed
That would make sense.
in spy mode.
Or he's
How the
like,
fuck
Yeah.
is that
But
business?
the whole
That's what he
operation's
is.
still happening. It's like,
Yeah. Okay. And then if there's any observers, of course, Scylla can see the whole thing because they're on.
I think there
on
are
top of it.
third-party fishermen too,
Yeah.
right? There's fishermen
see
on this
some
boat that
around.
are not spies.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think so. Yeah, or there's at least one more than the driver, right? I feel like isn't there more than one fisherman on this boat?
Yeah.
I think there's an actual sailor /
Yeah.
fisherman
Yeah, and-
steering the boat.
And then his buddy like probably hired him to come out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because then Silk sits on the nets and he's like, the
Yeah.
nets are dry.
So
Yeah.
so
They ain't out here fishing.
Right.
so Crane's a little bit scared that Silk's gonna be like, hey, wait a second. When we were just in there with Lemur, they took all your money. How do you have money now? And then if there's some third party listening to that, that is very bad.
Yeah.
So Crane is like smoothing over. He's practicing like a
Yeah.
weak deception on Silk just to keep things from getting
Yeah.
true.
Keep things-
Yeah.
Kayfabe.
Yeah,
Kayfabe, man.
Yeah.
and it's a real bad one. It's like, when the people that are in charge of our whole city secretly in their submarine searched me, they missed all of my money.
Yeah. And I also don't have a money belt on right now.
Yeah.
He's like, oh shit, you noticed that I don't have a money belt?
Mhm.
My bad.
Is that like a fanny pack or something?
I guess so.
Yeah. It's like if this
A little
belt
guy.
on the back of it there'd be little slits,
Oh.
and I could stuff my money
Oh, a
in there,
money
or
Okay.
Put your weed in there.
Wee belt.
Or your new acquisition of Adderall that you're
Yeah.
selling.
I'm
Yeah.
not selling Adderall.
You should.
I don't have any Adderall.
You'll make money.
I don't like money.
The cost,
Yeah.
the cost of that's probably gone down so hard recently. Like that stuff is everyone's on Adderall.
Yeah,
now.
but the thing is, everyone who's on it needs it every day.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
Yeah.
Like people flip out. People that are like on daily Adderall people will lose their shit when they can't get it for like 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need that.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You sell it. You don't.
Oh, well, all right.
You
what
don't
I'm
get
saying.
high on your own supply.
Yeah.
You
But
smoke
the-
weed
Yeah.
and drink coffee.
The government, through this
Cigarettes.
program called Medicare,
Right.
will give it to you for free, and then you sell it.
And that's
Well,
the
soon
care.
I'm gonna have big
Medicaid.
fancy
Medicaid.
Pretty soon I'm gonna
Yeah,
have big
right,
fancy
Medicaid.
government insurance.
What?
Pretty soon I'm gonna have big fancy government insurance.
Yeah, there you go.
Because why?
Through marriage.
Nice.
I'm gonna marry the government.
It's sort of true.
Yeah, I mean, that,
It
that
is.
kind of is how it works.
It's something I've been thinking about.
It does. I mean, you do get some nice benefits from it, though. Like,
Yeah.
it's being married has its perks.
Especially being married to the government.
Yes.
Get invited to all the best parties.
They'll probably let you know before if something really bad is like you'll get a little bit of head start on everyone else when something really bad's about to happen.
Yep, they're gonna let OSHA know
What do you
first.
mean you're getting married to the government, dude? Like, who do you-
And works for the government.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and-
So, you're just- yeah.
So
Well,
you
for the
government
city,
insurance.
So you get government benefits.
No, the national one.
Oh, okay. I thought you worked for the city, but that's
No.
fine.
The state or the
The national one.
Okay.
Federal is usually the term.
Huh?
Federal.
Usually federal is the term that.
I don't like the Federalists.
Good old George W. Bush.
You only like nationalists?
The US
That's what you
government.
said.
That's right. I'm a nationalist.
Well,
Sorry.
let's say Trivigant seems like a great place. Their spy system is awesome.
Yeah.
So, so when I was rereading, because I was just remembering something I was thinking about months ago when I was rereading this section. So at first I was like, wait a minute. So the Arabs and the Catholics are going to war. This is the Crusades? But then I was like, no. This is the Islamic Emirates invading Spain, the Iberian Peninsula. That's what this is, and that's why their spies are so good, and they're smarter than them, and because of that's when Islam was kicking ass in the thinking department, you know.
In the thinking department.
Well, they were
Okay.
inventing the scientific method,
Okay.
Math,
astrology,
The number
well,
zero.
bringing it from India, but yeah.
algebra.
Yeah. So that's why they're so fucking awesome.
This
That's
checks
the
out.
thought that I had at this.
No,
point.
that makes a lot of sense because it's. I mean, it's if it's a crusade, it ain't working out so well for the.
Well, also, the Christians, the Catholics invaded the Muslims during the Crusade.
Right.
That's not
Exactly.
what happened.
Yeah.
It's the other way around.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
That was for really weird reasons.
Also, the Crusades were more of a French enterprise, I think, than a Spanish. I don't really think. Like,
And in Holy Roman Empire.
sure, which is German.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think of the Spaniards being overly involved in the Crusades. They just hid the Knights Templar afterwards.
They're far. I mean, they're
Yeah.
not as, it's not as easy to get.
Right, they're at the other end.
Yeah.
Less involved.
They got more. They have to deal with Africa.
Yeah,
Morocco.
Northern Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tunis.
Tunis. Good old Hannibal. Those
Yes.
elephants.
Tunis.
Tunisia.
Oh.
Anyway, so that's what's happening here.
And now that we've discussed the entire book, wrap the whole thing up in a neat little package, we
That's
will
right.
dissolve the group.
Yeah, I hope that this has answered everybody's questions.
So we go. Yeah. So we go straight from the boat to the hotel, and this is where Crane breaks it down and does one of these very not New Sun like expository explanations of all the secrets that have been happening in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
It's funny, there's spies in this book in a way that there weren't in the previous book, but there's more secrets in the book without spies.
Well, because the spies are the ones who are like, let me tell you all the secrets now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no spies to do that in the last book. Nobody knew what was going on.
Okay, so what else do they talk about in the hotel?
Can we go back to Crane? Is Crane really Trivigante in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean, is he not like just using that as part of his ruse?
No, Silk thinks he's from Palustria.
That's
Okay.
what.
But he's really
yeah.
from
Pollustrians, though.
He told Lemur Polustria, and
Lemur
Lemur
Polustria.
didn't believe it.
Okay, got it.
Lemur
Okay, I
was
getting
like,
confused.
Yeah, but
we
Silk's
watched
just like,
Polustria.
Yeah, he's from Polustria.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I wasn't getting all those different places.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah,
Silk
right.
doesn't have any concept of like geopolitics. So one
Yeah.
town is
The
the
world's
same as
designed
any
for
other
not
one.
to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if Crane says he's from Polustria, he might as well believe it because it's not like he's going to be like, but Polustria has these qualities and
Yeah.
Trivagon has these qualities.
I think he knows a little bit about the qualities of the towns, but
A little
Crane
bit.
does tell him
Because he knows about
specifically though.
the women.
No, Crane does tell him that like it's in my country it's good for men, even though we're like the subjugated gender.
Right.
They're way better to us here than you are to your women.
Right.
Which was true of Islam and Christianity at the time.
Interesting.
Islam had really progressive divorce and property laws
Yeah.
for women.
Khadijah is like a big character in Islam.
I don't know Khadijah.
It's one of the four, like, Muhammad has like a crew. He's
Oh,
got like his
yeah.
team, and Khadijah is his wife,
Okay.
or like one of his main wife.
Mhm.
And
His
I'm
main wife.
I'm butchering the
Yeah,
Muslim
yeah,
faith right here.
You know more than me.
Doing a great job.
Yeah, but there is a there is like a model in the holy crew,
Mhm.
in the Beatles of Islam. There's a chick that plays drums.
Plays drums.
Nice.
But yeah, that's why it's interesting when you hear about Sharia law and stuff like that, is because at one point they were the progressive ones when they were newer.
Right.
classic.
Well, yeah, you
I
don't
never
you don't
thought
get
about
to
that.
you don't get to keep one viewpoint and have that be progressive forever. I think that's
Everything.
not how
tends
progressiveness
towards-
works.
It's
Yeah.
for being equity.
The one that's happening right now has already jumped that shark.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
It's- I could never imagine that it would take less than like a generation for that to.
I know.
No, no,
it's
that-
Do you,
amazing.
wait,
that-
do you mean like the values of the...
I mean, like to a point where like the
Iran.
like people
What's
that call themselves
progressive
progressive are now like
already,
for
like, pretty-
censorship.
pretty
Well,
regressive.
yeah.
You know?
I feel
Oh,
like
that,
we're at a
okay.
point where it's happening like in 5 years, and
Yeah.
soon it will be happening. If
Like
faster
every
than
couple
a
of
year.
months. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
TikTok
that-
trends at work, so
Can you believe that we accepted this kind of behavior last month?
Right.
Yeah. What are
Right.
what is wrong with you that I see no story
I'm
that
not
proves
associated.
that you're not still in last month's mindset?
I think a big part of that though is that kind of progressivism's insistence on being purely social and cultural instead of actually
Yeah.
Structural.
structural. Yeah, I mean, because there's no interest in true structural change.
Yeah.
It's all about just like, oh yeah, like is there a trans James Bond now, or whatever? It's like and,
Well, that's
and
like-
people are like, we just wanted healthcare, you guys. Like
Yeah.
that's like I don't need this kind of like stunt casting or whatever
I
to feel
literally just
seen.
want to not
But
die.
Yeah,
if
I
you
just
think
want to
about it,
not
like,
be in danger.
That's kind of the only... For people who, like, are just adopting these ideas and not necessarily living them, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of... That's where they're gonna see the results, and that's where they can,
Yeah.
like, make a difference. Like, that's the only place it's going to happen, is by bullying people on the internet. So the guy at, like, like Columbia Pictures, which I don't even know if exists, like, oh
It's
well, we
Sony.
gotta have Sony is like, okay, well, girl Ghostbusters now.
Mhm.
That'll hold them off for a couple
yeah,
weeks.
because
like-
it's purely social.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there?
But I also think that it's just like initiation dealing with fear. The only way to get through it is to go all the way through. We got to get this car up to 88 miles an hour, and then
The Hitler number.
the structure will be able to change.
So you're advocating for accelerationism, in a literal sense.
Yeah. I want to be judgmental first.
But the structural argument is really interesting too. Like I'm just thinking about it now. And I think about it a lot too. But it's like, okay, let's think about the develop, like women's rights, for lack of like a better term, like the big umbrella thing. And like, okay, if we look now at like bank accounts of women in the United States and compare that to, 50 years ago or whatever, we'd probably see a great increase in the amount of money in the bank accounts. And then, so that is in one way like a change, like a phenomenon change.
But then also look at
is
the
that
men's
a-
bank accounts.
Well, yeah.
And
I mean,
then
that's,
see.
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you, well, I guess the only point, I don't even have a point, but I guess I'm just saying, like, is that structural change? And I would
I think
argue it's
if
not.
you have a narrow enough focus on something, you can kind of argue for whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're only looking at one aspect of a picture,
Yeah.
you can make that mean whatever you need it to mean for
Absolutely.
the sake of your argument.
Right.
And because of the way we talk to each other, there is no way other than
It's
to have a bigger
only
perspective.
granular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be like there's only this many inches in this article, and now it's down to like there's only this many words in this post.
Mhm.
So where like you have to focus on something to have an idea, and then once you're there, yeah, you can do whatever you want within that tiny little circle.
And this
and the
is
big
why
ideas are too like nebulous anyway. Like you have to be able. It's not only that you have to focus on something, but
Your
but
neighbor's
also
listening to our entire
that you have to
conversation.
like probably not. But I
I
don't
don't
think
think it's
they care.
that interesting.
But also that, and even if they were, they would probably be on board.
oh, fine.
But also that you have to like pop your shot off. Like you have
Yeah.
to. Not only do you have to like focus on a specific thing, but you have to like make your point. You can't just
Yeah.
like broach a topic or like
Absolutely, yeah.
This is
consider
why Joe
something.
Rogan is,
like you can't
is so
you
melodic.
can't say I would like to consider something. You
Yeah.
have to be like, well, this is this.
Yeah.
Like if that's all the
Mhm.
only thing.
Like,
you
But,
can do.
but then again,
yeah,
I think
exactly.
the
You have to
Joe
get your
Rogan
mic
end of
drop
that,
on.
the
Yeah.
Joe Rogan end of that is a particularly kind of like bad faith, like I don't know.
You watch Joe Rogan?
I have. I hate Joe Rogan.
I hate
Yeah,
Joe
that
Rogan.
sucks.
I like that he has actual conversations
I
on
think
his
he
show,
does-
and that's why people watch it.
I think there's something to that, but I think that there's a level of what he does that I think is an issue. And
That is
I
an issue.
an issue. I don't know if I
I
have
don't
a
like
better.
when he has his douchey friends on, but I like when he talks about
Ideas.
when like, so trans people want to get into MMA and fight in the gender that they identify with, and here's the physical weirdness about that.
It's a topic.
What
for
are we going?
discussion.
What do we want to do? Can we talk about that? And people are saying no, we can't talk about that.
Right.
You know, like that's.
And you
that-
kind of need like a bonehead like Joe Rogan who I
Yeah.
feel like he's not malicious. He's just like
He's just a meathead.
He's a knucklehead. So
Yeah.
he's like
but an intellectual knucklehead.
I think that he has a way of hiding behind. I think that
He's a gross dude.
he does not take responsibility for some of the things that he ends up saying, or some of the things that his guests end up saying.
Probably.
That I think is a because he can hide it behind like I'm just like asking questions, man.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool to do that, but you also have to have some level of responsibility.
But what does that look
For-
like?
for-
What is him taking responsibility? What is that?
I have no maybe being
I don't think
less
there-
of a
I don't think
meathead.
there's I think that's where you should watch his show. I think he does
No,
take responsibility.
yeah, no, I totally.
And we never get to see it,
We
'cause
got
nobody
on, we
complains
got
about
on
that.
this topic because Jen was, talking about like, NYT think
Sorry.
pieces or whatever you were thinking about,
Mhm.
where like you have
literally
to,
everything.
yeah, you have to have like some kind of concise point. And you're saying, well, Joe Rogan doesn't do that. True, and I think that he's a response to that kind of thinking, and I think that's definitely like a cool. Not cool. I mean, that's like the aspect that people are drawn to, right? You get to hang out with Joe Rogan
It's fulfilling
and his interview subject for a few hours and like
Yeah.
listen to ideas being
Yeah,
discussed. I think
smoke a joint and be like,
I
have you heard about the
agree
metaverse?
with Mark that that ideally we would have better options than Joe Rogan because Joe Rogan is not someone like I never
And
watch
but
it.
the
And I'm like, I
reason
respect
that we
this guy,
don't, but the
like,
reason
'cause I
that we don't is because if you like, he's like, oh, well, I'm just like a bonehead and I blah blah blah. And if you want to be a serious person,
Mhm.
you have to pop your shot off. You have to like have
Yeah.
an opinion and like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're
And it
you're not allowed to do that if
Well,
you're a
also,
serious person. You're
I-
not allowed to like do that.
I started watching Joe Rogan because I was disagreeing with what he was saying.
And so I wanted to hear
You got
what he was
drawn- you got
saying more
drawn
so I
into
could
that.
talk about it. So
I
could
think that's
about
the
it.
appeal, right? That's why he has millions of subscribers. Is
Well, a
because
lot of people probably agree
whether
with
you
it, too.
agree with him or not,
Oh, yeah,
it's
it's-
compelling.
He's not an ideologue, though. It's like he doesn't have like a prescriptive like program for how society should be.
He
really,
questions himself.
yeah, he really just does have a. I feel like kind of a little kid attitude of like, what is that? I want to know about that. Whoa, that's crazy.
He was really, really into conspiracy theories and made a bunch of money so that he could have a special to go find like Bigfoot and everything. And the conclusion of his special was, I don't see Bigfoot when I'm looking for Bigfoot. I see a bunch of guys that aren't getting laid.
Oh, you know what? He was. I saw a clip on Twitter of somebody interviewing Joe Rogan, and they were
Mhm.
talking about that show.
Mhm.
And he said, "You know what I figured out? That there's a very, very specific kind of person who gets into conspiracy theories. It's this one kind of guy. It's an unfuckable men.
Right.
It's like that's who they are."
The thing about that, though, is it's not correct. That is not the only kind of person who gets into
No, it's
conspiracy
not.
theory.
Right. It's not.
That's what Joe Rogan is, and
That's who he
the kind
found.
that he hangs out with.
But
there's
I
also
think like
It's probably
people who
like
are into the
statistically
Tuskegee-
a pretty
statistically pretty high. Yeah.
Like
I don't understand what a conspiracy theory is, or how to generalize about people that believe in them. I feel like
Yeah.
it's a
Well,
meaningless.
I
term.
don't think. I mean,
it's a very
not
purposefully
all.
hazy.
I mean, you like socialism is a conspiracy theory in a lot of. It's like this idea of how capital affects us, and so like it's conspiracy theories aren't all just like left field bullshit.
But
It
I
can be a
feel
lot
like-
of different things, but
That's not what anyone means when they say
No,
that.
it
I feel like
isn't.
For the
It isn't.
purposes of like this type of conversation about it, the definition is something like it's like. I mean, because there are kind of I don't know. It's like something about also not. It's like you have like something that doesn't jibe with the like popular narrative of something, but the other like additional layer is that you also are just like listening to what somebody else said about it. Like it has it's not you're not
Right.
like thinking that much about it. You're
Yeah.
just like, oh well, I don't believe this, so like I believe this instead.
Well,
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
And
Yeah.
that's like I think that when you're talking about like a type of person, like that's what's happening.
Yeah.
It's not like you're being really critical and you have like a different. It's not like how I feel about 9/11 or
I have
something.
met- I have-
but it's like another thing.
I have met many, many, many black people, because white is one of the stipulations for this type of person. Many, many black people who love the hold the pal horse, and all this whole branch of conspiracy theory, because they know that there's a conspiracy against them, and they're fucking right.
Yeah.
An ideal conspiracy theory is one that will never be able to be proved true because they are so effective at keeping their secrets.
Yeah.
So you'll
Right.
always be able to spin your wheels at it. It'll never collapse into something.
Right.
It's,
Well, like Bigfoot will never
Right.
like go
Right.
away as a and that's not even real. Not necessarily a conspiracy theory.
It
right.
gets-
That's just,
I mean, I guess it
Right.
could
Science.
feed into some of it,
I think
but it's that
also-
kind of thinking.
The concept of the conspiracy theorist and conspiracy theories has changed a lot, just like over the past, not even very long, less than a decade. That
Sure.
concept and that
Certainly
kind of person.
sex files.
So like exactly, yeah. And so like when I don't know when Joe Rogan was making that show, so potentially when he did that show and he came to that conclusion, like it was probably a completely different context or
I
I mean,
really
it's
think that
definitely-
Joe is white, and so he didn't talk to people of color about the
yeah,
conspiracy
probably
theory
true.
that they believe in, because
Yeah.
there's definitely
and they wouldn't
non-whites who
They
are into
wouldn't
conspiracy.
talk-
Alice Walker should go on Joe Rogan.
talk about
I would
don't
watch
think
that.
the
she
kind
can.
of conspiracy
I
theories
would
that black
watch
people
that.
have on TV
Right.
anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very different world, but it's also out there.
It's one of the things I feel like that make it really hard for me to like ever be square is that it's just like the basics of conspiracy theory as a concept don't make any sense to me, because it's like, okay, a conspiracy theory, definitely the government, the CIA tried to start a revolution in Iran so that they could overthrow Mossadegh, who was going to nationalize the oil.
Mm-hmm.
That's like that has everything about a conspiracy, or like the CIA paid to manipulate the art world in order to make abstract expressionism the most popular thing going on with rich art collectors. But those things are both true, and there's books about them written by the people involved.
Yeah.
But they're definitely conspiracy theories.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that, like, not all conspiracy theories are just bullshit.
Yeah.
So then why
Like,
is
that's-
conspiracy theory just like an obvious pejorative anytime it's said?
I mean,
Because-
the
because-
answer is in the question.
Because
yeah.
it's a way
The
it's a
answer
way
is
of
in the question.
dismissing an
Yeah.
argument to preserve status quo.
The
Yeah,
answer
okay.
is in the
People
question.
don't want to hear about Iran-Contra. They don't want to hear about MK Ultra, because, like, that means that the CIA is doing terrible things. You know, like,
So how is it
you
that
don't want
even
to believe it.
And also, we don't want to have anything that you can't definitively know and have a correct an opinion on.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know, the-
there's
right.
no. Yeah. There's
The
no
essence
room
of the
for.
reason the conspiracy theory is falling apart right now is because people think I know the truth, and conspiracy theory works when you're like, nobody can know the truth.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Here's my theory. I can't tell you that it's
Yeah,
true
being a true
because
skeptic.
because if I knew what was true, they would kill me
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
because
the
they're
official-
great.
In the
The
last
official
this.
government explanation for JFK is still the magic bullet. Like
Yeah, which is absurd.
everyone knows is not a real thing. But like it doesn't matter. It's
A
still
magazine
it
sued
doesn't
G.
matter.
Gordon Liddy, or no, G. Gordon Liddy sued a magazine for saying that he was involved in the JFK assassination, and he lost, which means that the magazine wasn't lying when it said that he was.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
there's photos of him in Dallas on the day.
Right, with
I'm
George
just
W.
saying,
Bush.
like, yeah.
George
H.W.
H.W. Bush. There's too many
Little
Bushes.
babies.
George H.W. Bush says he like doesn't remember where he was when
Yeah.
JFK was assainated. That's
The
also
only
his-
president in America at the time.
He was
The
like,
head of
I
the
don't know. I don't
CIA.
know. I was around somewhere. I don't know.
Okay,
He
so
literally says that.
yeah,
At a
plausible
costume party. I was
deniability.
at a costume party. I went as a tramp.
I feel like it's impossible to refute the statement that the only way to not be a conspiracy theorist and to be sure that you're not a conspiracy theorist is to take single story that's taught in school or said on the news on TV at face value.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think which many people do.
I had an
People
amazing
don't.
conversation with someone who was like, "That's just conspiracy theory," and I was like, "You believe in Russiagate?" And he's like, "That's not conspiracy theory. That's a fact."
Right. Exactly.
But,
That's
there's
a
no
huge-
proof to it.
That's a huge one, and in the last 5 years, we've seen a whole like media campaign against misinformation, right? Which is a huge part of things because I now see like big
At
movements
the
by
same time as
governments-
Rachel Maddow
Right.
was like,
Well,
Russiagate.
and governments and corporations right now are very concerned about conspiracy theories, right? Because what is conspiracy
a
theory?
very
It's
certain time.
an interrogation of power, right? And coming up with an idea. Hey,
Yeah.
let's look at this phenomenon. Let's
It's
try to
any
come up with an
questioning
idea.
or contradiction of the story that the news agrees on.
Well,
Yeah.
it's believing that
Then you
history
see
has been
Russiagate,
planned
which
by a
is
group of people rather
obviously
than happening accidentally.
Well, and the difference is that Russiagate is not questioning something that the U.S. government has done. It's
Right.
like saying, like, oh, actually,
Right.
it was something.
Yeah.
So it's just
Right.
interesting to observe from an outsider. Like conspiracy theories are very alive, but Russiagate's not called a conspiracy theory in mainstream
Yeah,
media.
but
It's
Right,
the
because it's
called
behavior,
news.
the behavior of the people that believe in it, despite the fact that, well,
My
up
brother,
until now
my
there was
brother of whom is like an enormous Russiagate guy. Like he's like
Amazing.
yeah, as are some of my friends too, and a lot of our
that's
people
Yeah.
know. Like,
that's
yeah,
so
really
weird
into
'cause
that.
they
My
were like,
boss whipsaws back and forth about the
People
thing
love
that
it.
he vehemently believes on that topic.
Right.
Yeah, people love that shit, and it's like,
But and then
What are you
and then you have
talking
something like
about?
Q that I think is
Exactly.
like kind of nurtured as a way of pointing to
yeah,
conspiracy and saying like this is for crackpots.
right.
Right. But it is a conspiracy
Well,
to
and it-
manipulate a bunch of
Well,
crackpots.
Well, you're
and,
right,
and
it's
it
nurtured
provides
by
and it provides a
mainstream
great
media.
cover for like
I
the
think that's-
Epstein
I
conspiracy
think that's
kind
why
of
they
thing.
let
like,
the January 6th thing happen, too.
they didn't
Because
let
you-
that happen. They made that happen.
Well, you can look, well, however you want to look at it, that means the same
There's
thing.
no way
like,
that they didn't have people within the organizations, like the same way they do with all the Muslim bombers.
Oh, no, of course, of
There's
course.
multiple days. Some of
Absolutely,
them
yeah.
let it happen. Some of them caused it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But,
And they
Like
don't even
those
have to work
meetings-
together. They can be off doing their own fucking thing.
But the point
but they
is,
have the
but
same
the
goal.
point is
I mean,
that
once
those
again, I
guys-
accept responsibility.
And
for
that's why
January
it was
6th.
just like on TV for like weeks and weeks and weeks. These clips of these fucking dumbasses
Doing
in there
nothing,
doing
vandalism.
literally nothing and just being like, "Duh." But
Yeah.
because it's like that is the image that you're allowed to see of someone questioning the efficacy of electoral
Yeah.
politics.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what, like, oh, you think we have rigged elections?
Yeah.
That's you. You're the
Yeah.
guy with the fucking, like, horn
Yeah.
hat on.
Absolutely.
Like, you're the
Absolutely.
guy. Like, that's
and
you.
they're
you
still
know?
referencing it now, and in like the recent like crackdowns on social media that we're seeing. Like if you turn on last week, I don't know if anyone was listening to NPR, but it seemed like every other story was like criticizing Facebook and Instagram, which by the way I'm not fans of. But I feel like the campaign against social media now is largely motivated by like quelling conversation.
It's
right?
not
It'll be
really-
interesting in the post-social media world.
It will be.
It's
or
not
just
a-
to see what it evolves into.
It's funny because it's not a campaign against Facebook; it's a campaign with Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facebook are really into.
Well, there's a degree of a game of chicken, I think.
Well, I think that it like the idea of government intervention, more direct government intervention and control over what's said on social media helps Facebook. There, nobody can compete with the company that's like doing everything they can to help.
If the
government.
government's upset about something, then that's going to make it very appealing.
I
to
kind of
some
detect a
people.
tension there. So I mean, I don't know. Like,
It's not real.
I mean, I'm not saying that. Right.
Nothing. There's no downside to Facebook for more government intervention.
The gameplay is that Facebook
Right.
says, the government's like, you need to be regulated. Facebook is like, yeah, great, regulate us. What are the regulations? And then as
Yeah.
soon as the government says specific things, Facebook can lobby against those things and make sure they never happen because what legislation has the government been able to pass?
The government wants more control over what people think based and what they think is coming off of their screens. So like if government can have more control over what people think by utilizing Facebook, then that means Facebook is now built into the government and is
Right.
only going to get bigger and more powerful.
Well, like
Right.
Something like Facebook going down a couple of weeks ago was a way, like an
So
illustration to a lot of people. Like this is like a utility. Like we can't go without this because it is
Right.
vital to this kind of communication. And of course, some people took that as a way of being like, oh, I should get out of this. But I think that in the very mainstream view of that is like, no, we have to have this now.
Yeah.
Because of WhatsApp or whatever. Like that's
Right.
how people talk to their relatives overseas.
Right.
Or
I
like,
think that's what you were saying, Ryan. Right? Is that like the government's looking to absorb social media?
The government wants the power,
And turn
like
it
they
into a
see
utility,
the
like you
like
said.
they see that the social media has the power to like funnel people into things and change their behavior,
Right.
and they need that power. Like government is clearly desperate. That's like a weird thing that you can't.
I mean,
it's hard to
We're
talk
seeing
about
the
because
end of government.
yeah, they have the desperation of people whose power is very, very tenuous. Like they demand that we have a big deal crisis with them every single day. They can't let us go a day without like being obsessed with what they're doing and what's going to happen, which is like not the behavior of someone who actually has strong power.
Which is why I think that it's interesting that you think the government is going to take over Facebook. I think that it's the other way around.
Well, I mean, either
Well,
way.
I think-
I think Facebook is going to take over the government.
I think you'll get a collusion, but Facebook needs the legitimacy and the permanence.
well, that, I
of
mean,
Bigger
that's,
than
that's where we
America.
see the snow crash thing happen.
Yeah.
Like that's
Right.
we have a satirical model
Franchise.
of a thing that's now being seen as like
Oh.
legitimate means of
Nice
government.
Gumby shirt. You
Yeah.
guys see this shirt? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a hell of a Gumby shirt.
It's really nice.
What's the time?
Hi, Jonathan.
Yeah, what is the time?
This is book club. Yeah, I'm gonna get Kenny.
What time?
12:15.
Oh, okay.
I have a watch.
Yeah, so like what? There's no downside for Facebook. Facebook is
Right.
into this idea. They become more of an ungo-awayable thing.
Well, the
once
only
government
downside
uses
would be like what Connor's saying is like whether they want to be the government or whether they want to become part of the government, right?
I think they definitely want to become part of it.
I mean, what I was thinking, like I remember a
I
few
think
years
about
ago, Mark
government.
Zuckerberg was like being like subpoenaed or something, as he seems to be like every now and then.
Yeah.
I'm no fan of him, but I remember him saying like you know, like Facebook is a forum for people to discuss things, and it's not our job to regulate what they discuss. And the interrogation was basically arguing, yes, it is your job to do so, which is like right now like the mainstream idea.
Is that
right?
like if you don't do that, people are dying. People will die because you let someone write hate speech.
Well, now the whole thing that people are up in arms about, which is legitimate for sure, but it's like teenagers and their self-image. But that was the same argument against rap and video games and whatever when I was a kid. It's always about going back to like think of the teenage
children.
girls, you
Well,
know,
it's also
like, think of the girls,
it's an
think of the
intense
children.
lie to say that Facebook is a forum for people to discuss things, because Facebook is a way to mine your marketing
Right.
metrics.
Exactly.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And to sell it.
Right, which is
That's what Westworld's
its
about.
ultimate. Yeah, that's the thing to dislike about Facebook and social media.
Well, it's also like
It's turning
the
you
problem,
into a
like
product.
in this argument when he's saying this is what Facebook is, and billing it as like
Right.
it's freedom of speech, man.
Right.
Like no, it's not. They want you
Yeah.
It's
to feel like you
monetization
have
of
free
speech.
speech because then they can get more data out of you.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
surveillance.
You won't have as much
You know?
engagement if you can't say like emotional things that you just thought of like the top of your head.
Yeah.
You won't engage. If you have to sit down and think about what you're gonna write, a lot less fucking people are gonna write on it.
You can shoot all the cowboys and have sex with all their whores because in your black hat we have a mind scanner
Yeah.
that is copying your entire personality, which now we own.
Yeah.
It's funny to think of the
Yeah,
world.
don't-
It's like
yeah.
seems like a really beneficent setup in that like they're not trying to get anything out of like they're not like
Yeah.
the people aren't cattle in the same way that we're cattle to like our computer overlords.
Right.
You know, like POS isn't like concerned about the productivity of the people.
Yeah, that's always a question of like, well, why are all the people here? Like, why bother with
Well,
this
I guess they're
society?
not there to be productive. They're there to get to the next place.
They're-
It's not
yeah,
capitalist.
Yeah.
It's not a
Yeah.
capitalist
Yeah, it's not
society.
Yeah. Which
And,
is
and productivity isn't actually a thing that we inherently, naturally need to be.
Exactly.
It's bad for us
Is
to be
the
productive.
is the world
Yeah.
dystopian or is it possibly utopian?
Right,
like-
exactly.
They're always indistinguishable.
The
It's just
world?
where you're standing in it that makes it one. or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
other.
Does it benefit you or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the utopia, like going back to the progressive, the thing that was progressive like 2 years ago that's now like really,
Yeah.
what was it, reactionary, is like, in order to have the utopia where no teenage girls don't like themselves, we need to have a level of control that is definitely dystopian if you just got born into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, utopia
yeah.
is just the top of a dystopia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the beginning.
Yeah. But it's just interesting, to think about the world and like, one of the big questions is what is the purpose of the world? Why isn't everyone just frozen? And why don't machines just unload them and wake them up or whatever? Like, it seems like the technology's there, but like, clearly it's important for Pause that there's like this whole like world in the world existing.
Yeah.
They did
And
a
is-
lot of work to
Right.
like
A lot
engineer
of
their
work, yeah.
their world and create gods.
They
and
basically
stuff.
made a state-sized spaceship, right? And then so it's like maybe he wanted there to be people living inside.
Yeah.
of it,
I mean, I
having
think
a good
I think
time.
that the end plan. I think that Typhon's end plan is to possess a billion people and be a billion people.
Yeah.
Literally,
I guess
beat them.
maybe the people. Okay, so I don't know if I should dip into Short Sun, but so
To who?
Short Sun.
Oh, okay. Sure. I said
That
Schwartzman.
Schwartzman.
so okay, so
Jason
Schwartz.
they create
Jason
these
Schwartz.
gods and stuff for the people on the world,
Mhm.
and I think they're trying to like re-engineer society and to
Mhm.
be like this is how society works now, is that we worship Pas, whatever, maybe, because they mention in Short Sun briefly that like they talk to one of the sleepers that's been awakened, and he's like, oh yeah, like we're like programmed to immediately pick up on what's happening around us and try to blend in immediately, like
Mhm.
so they're like the people who are awoken are supposed to like immediately try to like take in the culture of the people they're among and blend in.
Mhm.
So it's like
okay, create this culture where everybody is
Jesus.
believes in this one
Oh my
god,
God.
That's what happens.
has certain customs.
This time
Like
of year.
it's a way to like
Like a beach nut or something.
create the
It's the
society that people
Magnolia.
will be in,
Okay.
on blue and green.
Oh, right. If everybody wakes up, then there'll be no one.
That's why there's
Like
rules.
we won't know which ones are the servants.
Exactly. Yeah, you
Yeah,
wake
but-
up and then it's like, oh, what am I supposed to do? I mean, I guess you could
Yeah.
just put instructions in their brain, or maybe that was too hard. I don't know.
Well, if you're.
Well, you
if-
only put one set of instructions in the brain, and then you wake up to a scenario that's different from what the instructions
Oh,
are for.
true.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. You got to have people who have moved through the whole
There's
time.
probably
so
been
that
a
they can
bunch
get
of chat going on.
There's Johan's been in and out. Sanic is around,
Hey,
Okay.
Sam.
noting that we're all in the same room again.
Yeah.
Now Johan's saying some stuff. He said, "Oh, I just had a realization. Typhon puts himself in mainframe because he will do anything to live forever. But Silk is suicidal, and he's kind of immortalized against his will by Horn. This ties into Connor's thinking about him not wanting power.
The people who should have power don't want it. That's, yeah.
And there's like the constant contradiction or like weird, I don't know, contradiction, paradox of Silk in that he always errs on the side of doing a selfless thing because he knows that will be, if not practical, it'll at least be good.
Yeah.
And then that constantly puts him in situations where people want to help him. Like,
Right. That's the true secret of power. The best thing to do with it is give it away, because then if everybody's giving away power, everybody will constantly have more and more power.
yeah.
I just had a funny small thought, which is about Silk's suicidal tendencies,
Mhm.
which is, I wonder if when they cloned Typhon, if he already was attached to Piaton,
Oh, that's
who's always like, kill me now,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to die,
Mm-hmm.
kill me.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I
mean,
just
I
thought,
also think that
what if he's got a little?
Between
Because
those two, there's still.
Based on how the logic of the book works, if you get somebody's body part, you absorb part of their personality.
yeah, that's
Exactly.
true. I also
Well, that's gonna be really hard to do.
I also think that when
You
Silk
wanna
is
lock it up.
being suicidal, that's when he allows himself to be selfish. Like those are his most selfish moments. is
Yeah.
when he's like because he wants to kill himself because his lady's flirting with somebody else, which she's doing to aid him. Like that's just
Yeah.
her weapon. Like it's a selfish moment. I think it's a self-pitying moment.
Well, like, it's a young guy who saw his first naked chick a couple days ago.
Right.
So, like,
But so in that way, it's Typhonian as much as it is.
Impulsive.
It's both of them
yeah.
made into one body.
But then when he actually does, like, I mean, he does actually commit suicide in the end.
What?
He does actually commit suicide.
In short time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's after a long time.
Yeah.
And that in that moment, I sometimes wonder if Silk is suicidal or if Horn is suicidal. Horn's the person who actually goes over the side.
At least in terms of this chapter,
This is
Silk
taking
place in another
book.
ready to die.
But
Oh.
I don't know
no,
if the
but
same as
he's
suicidal.
got a pretty clear thinking. I feel like he does a suicidal thing when he walks out in front of the soldiers and is
Yeah.
like, "I'm Silk." But he explains very clearly that he knows that if they publicly capture him, he has a better chance of not being killed because they can't just massacre him in front of everyone. That will set the revolution off. And
Yeah.
Silk says that explicitly.
Okay, yeah. I just remember him saying it's like it's better off if you shoot someone just to shoot me.
Yeah, I think that Silk knows. I mean, I think that he says in the end of this that he knows that his
Yeah.
best bet is to give up as publicly as possible.
Yeah.
And not to like if he's running, they can kill him, gun him down in secret. But if he's like out in the street or like not showing any kind of resistance, then killing him or even just like treating him very poorly is going to set off all of this rioting that's popping off.
Yeah. Yeah. He
So
seems
I think
aware
in
of
this,
that.
at the end of this book, I don't think he does anything suicidal. I think he thinks through his actions really carefully and thinks I have a better chance of living by going out and just throwing my hands up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I never got... See, that's why I didn't think he's necessarily suicidal at this point. But I do feel like he's prepared to die, though.
Yeah,
Two different things.
definitely.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like so, yeah. I mean, I think he's ready for. He's at peace with his maker. You know, at least it seems like he is.
Mm.
Two different things, but like not so distant from each other that you can't slide from one into the other.
Right.
Well, I mean, being prepared to die makes it so that suicide is a more ready
Right.
option.
And if you
And
consider,
means a different thing.
yeah,
Right.
and if you've
potentially.
considered suicide really seriously and decided not to, you're more ready to die than you were before you had that.
Right, exactly.
consideration.
Exactly.
I guess I'm just thinking of suicide as in like the act of like taking one's own life, like specifically, I guess, like actively.
To
yeah.
be dead.
Yeah. Whereas he's just saying like, all right, like if I have to die in this situation for the greater good, I'm ready for that. Which in my brain is like just a little bit different than like how I think of suicidal. Yes.
And he also,
But it's also those two things are closer together than like what Lemur thinks about.
Right.
He won't die for anything.
Yeah.
So suicide is a completely different thing. For him.
Right. Lemur absolutely is not. Yeah, he's the opposite of being ready.
Right.
Yeah, and is in fact a good foil for Silk. Right?
Or Typhon, who successfully has
Yeah.
lived forever.
Yeah. And that's power, right? I mean, according to like what you were saying earlier. I mean, if you're willing to give away your life,
Mhm.
that is in a sense power. You know, you're ready. Yeah.
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 And
Like, because if you're prepared to step out, in front of the tank or in front of the firing squad, like or to like even to bring it back to suicide, like if you're prepared to shoot yourself in the head after you have like 2 major albums under your belt as an artist like Kurt Cobain, like you are embracing a kind of power, right?
sure.
I mean,
I guess like longevity.
if Cobain hadn't killed himself, he would be making some tepid ass music that everybody would hate right now. You know?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
That's what I'm saying.
That's the
he would,
legacy preserved.
he would do the Chinese democracy thing. I feel
Yeah.
like where
Oh my
he'd
God.
have like an album.
album or something.
Like an album that like if he
Jungle
talks
Beats.
about whenever someone sees him that like he's making, but it doesn't come out for 25 years, and when it does, everyone's like, oh, that's what you spent all that time on, huh? All right, buddy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cardigan
Like,
looks good.
I should listen to
That's
that.
like, yeah, that's like control. Like, and it's how like people who don't have control, like Kurt Cobain didn't consider himself very in control of his life.
Yeah,
I know
he's not.
at that point. So like, but how like how destructive behavior comes from the desire for control. Where like, I know like a cause of eating disorders is like a lack of control, and that's like a super destructive thing.
Mhm.
But it's like.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, suicide. Like this
Yeah.
is the one thing that I can,
Well, that's what
like control I have
yeah.
over my future. is that I don't have to
Camus
be
talks
here.
about it
Yeah,
as
for
your,
sure.
your own most possibility is your own death,
Mm-hmm.
and you could always just kill yourself.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so that's like,
Yeah, I think
in
Sartre
his
said
way-
that too, right? Like,
may-
are you free if you're in a prison cell?
yeah, both of them were
It's like, yes,
of
you are.
kind of embracing the possibility of suicide as an empowering motivator. Say like, look, be you, do your thing, try it out, and live this weird thing that we're in. Because if it doesn't pan out, you can just kill yourself.
Yeah.
like don't worry about it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, edgy French boys.
Yeah.
so-
I made a sort of argument about this with a friend the other day because she was talking about this new job that she started and she wasn't sure. She's working for the EPA. She's a lawyer and she's working for the EPA and she's
That's
talking
gotta
about
be
how
hell.
she was just talking about how she feels like she's not sure if she'll ever be able to actually accomplish anything or not at this job or whatever. And she's like, I don't know. Some days I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, there's no way. And then some days I like think, certain like maybe I could get this thing. And I was like, well, she's like, sometimes I just think like I should just move on. And I was like, well, you could keep staying there. And the thing is, you can always quit. Like, you can always quit later.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
just quit
Yeah,
whenever
every day
you
is
want.
a day you could quit.
Exactly. Just do it until you don't want to do it anymore and then quit.
Mm-hmm. To circle back around to productivity, I think that's also just an attempt to feel like we're in control.
Right.
When
Yes.
we never are.
And it is
History
destructive, too.
Is a fountain.
Being obsessed with production
Mhm.
is a form of destruction.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
You can't produce
Absolutely.
something without destroying
It's
something that's
actually
already
quite
there.
Yeah.
bad for the world
Yeah.
that people are so
Yeah.
productive. We need to be a lot less productive at this point.
Well,
Yes.
that's how
Every
you
dollar
create-
you make
I'm
is a
doing
dollar
my
you're taking
That's how
away.
you- yeah, I mean, if you create permaculture, then like it's not about sustainability.
Yeah.
Like as a productive model, it's about just like getting to a point where things kind of sustain themselves.
Exactly.
Sustainability as like a hot buzzword went and it like came and went so fast because
Yeah.
there was no chance for that concept to be like useful
Because
to people
the-
making money.
Yeah, there's
Because there's a
no
Civil
way
War
to
now, yeah.
there's no way to attain sustainability operating under a capitalist production
Yeah.
model.
That's-
It's
because
antithetical.
sustainability and growth are
Yeah, it's,
opposites.
exactly. It's
basically.
antithetical to expansion. And
Yeah.
so
Sustainability is not productive.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a stasis.
it's a
Mhm.
flat circle.
yeah.
Yeah, and we'd all
Like
just
time.
sit around and observe how beautiful it is, and that would be the worth of life.
Yeah.
I
Like-
can't wait.
Like bears.
Yeah, like fucking bears.
There's
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
study
bears
that
like-
bears
What?
enjoy that bears have aesthetics.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
they like just sitting and like looking at a landscape.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got like there's been yeah
I
about
wanted to know if Kenny heard that.
bears will bears like to watch sunsets and
That's
will just sit
beautiful.
in a place with a good view and just chill and watch the sunset
I love that.
in sitting in place.
That makes
Yeah,
me
it's
so
fantastic.
happy.
It's really
Yeah, but of course they do.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
Well, they've worked
They
it
have
out.
eyes.
They've
They
worked
can
it out.
see.
Yeah, I mean they're huge, so you're not gonna fuck with them, and then they can just eat a bunch, sleep most of the winter, and hang out.
It's
So what we're
Love those
saying
berries.
is bears are just like better people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bears were our first god. They were the first thing we worshipped.
That's like I heard that elephants supposedly find humans cute, like how we find like kittens cute.
That's
That's
great.
That's very interesting.
I'm into that.
Like, oh, look at those little
I
guys.
mean, that is something. Like, you know, there are a lot of animals on the planet that are incredibly intelligent, and they like
Yeah.
don't live the way we do, and we don't think of them as intelligent because they don't live
Because
the
they're
way
not
we do.
productive.
Because they're not productive. But then, I mean, and some of them are, you know, like dolphins are fucking terrible, but
Yeah.
like
It's because
they-
they're
They
intelligent.
are the reign
Yeah.
of terror.
yeah, like they're fucking awful, but they are really smart, and they don't, you know, have to do the same kind of things we
Dolphins
do.
are terrible.
They are. I mean, yeah,
Really
like,
No,
bad.
they're really aggressive.
yeah, they're like all rapists.
Yeah,
But like gleeful rapists.
and murderers.
Yeah, and
Yeah, they'll
murderers.
kill.
Have you
Oh
seen
yeah,
that
they're
video
probably
of
like
dolphins?
sociopaths, right?
Yeah.
Like they have
Right.
intelligence, but they don't have like our, moral.
Yeah.
Well, and
Well,
they
It's
even
almost
have
like they
a,
lived in the belly of the cold, cold sea.
and they,
It's true. It's
and
a
they
rough place.
also have emotional intelligence.
No, yeah, but
Yeah.
they have their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But not
clearly their
ours.
values are different. But then, like something like like bears, kind of having.
I can't
achieved-
believe dolphins haven't been canceled yet.
Did you read?
Canceled dolphins.
This is what we're giving to our children.
That's
Images
why-
of dolphins.
That's why the John Lilly research assistant came out to say, like, that dolphin fucked me all through the 70s.
Yeah.
She was trying to cancel the dolphin.
Did you guys read about the man who's married to the crane?
Yeah!
Yeah.
The crane?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
it's
like there's
so
like
good.
this female crane at the zoo who has killed other male cranes they've tried to mate her with, and she's done it sneakily too. No one's seen her.
Yeah, there's
kill
no
them.
proof that
There's
she
no
killed
proof,
them.
but everyone's like she must have killed them.
Everybody in the crane community
Yeah.
agrees.
So she fell in love with this guy, this one handler, and he was like, they were like, they know she was doing mating behavior, and so he was like, wait a second, we might, like, she keeps killing the guys we're trying to mate her
She's an
with.
endangered
They're
crane
endangered.
species too, so they're pretty invested.
Yeah.
in-
She had already imprinted on him.
yeah.
So he's like, maybe if she loves me and we lead into this, I can fertilize her. So he has. And so he has kids, and I guess cranes mate for life. So this crane, like,
And they
treats
live for
them-
like 60 years
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So he's on
Whoa,
the hook.
he's just like,
He's
all
got-
right.
He has a crane family.
The thing
until,
is, yeah, you can't divorce a crane.
No. No.
Because
not
they
one
can
that
stab
killed
their beak through your sternum.
He has a crane family.
Yeah.
They do. They can kill people. They're very dangerous
No, but it's
creatures.
funny.
He squeezed
That's like
the
that's
sperm
I
into
can't
the,
divorce my
into
wife.
the
She
crane.
can
Like it's like
stab her beak through my sternum.
He made those crane
He
babies.
really did.
And he would like sit on the eggs or
Yeah,
not
yeah.
literal. I think they had like fake eggs that he could sit on.
But
and
he
that
had
was
to,
good
otherwise
enough.
she'd get pissed.
Or no, if he just stood over them, that was enough.
She would let him. She would let him stand.
He would just
But it
stand
had to seem
over
like
them.
he was taking responsibility. Being a dad.
Fucking out.
I love it.
Otherwise, she would stab her beak through his sternum.
Oh
Wow.
DMX.
DMX.
I was talking about DMX the other day because I misheard his song. I thought it was "Up in the Air" at first when I first heard it.
Up in the air.
Yeah. Y'all gonna make me go cuckoo up in the air. Up in the
I,
Yeah, like a cuckoo bird.
air. Yeah.
the other,
I love that
Makes
so
That's
much.
awesome.
You just reminded me. I kept. There was like a week ago where I kept trying to remember to text you guys and Ronsky. I had a DMX song in my head, and it was It was like one of those things where it's like I was just cracking myself up all day, and I didn't know how to stop except by maybe texting it to people that would think it was really stupid. But there's a DMX song, and this goes with our little discussion about animals, where he says, "The snake, the cat,
yeah.
the rat, the dog. How you gonna see him when you're just a
live in
little
the-
frog?"
No, Kenny has one too, but Kenny has one too, and it's the snake, the rat, the cat, the dog. How you gonna see him if you chillin' with a frog?
Oh, Kenny's a man after my own heart. I like,
Chilling with
with
the
the
frog
frog.
does take up a lot of focus.
How you gonna see him when you chillin' with the frog?
yeah, there was like 48 hours where if I was not deliberately trying to think of something else, that's what I was thinking. was DMX being like, my version where you are just a little frog, I feel has some merit.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell Kenny that.
That's great.
Well.
I'm glad that there's multiple
Do you-
versions.
DMX is one of the best rappers who did songs with himself where he did a really silly voice that talked to himself.
Yeah.
Oh.
All of those rappers are dead now. Biggie had a great one too, where his friend who wants to do crimes, and he's like, I don't know if I want to do crimes. He's like, what? My fucking tight! Come on, Biggie, let's go get it!
Yeah.
Kendrick does.
Yeah, I was
some
gonna
of that.
say.
Oh,
Kendrick
he does?
Kendrick
Which-
does that a fair bit.
I need
Yeah.
to get into the Kendrick. Devin the Dude
Nicki
does it.
Minaj is still around, right? She does that.
Does
She
Roman
doesn't
talk?
do shit.
Oh, sorry. I haven't been paying attention.
Does Roman and Nicki talk, or does Nicki just become Roman and rap? Like, do they have dialogues?
I don't
That's
know,
what we're
but I
talking
saw her on Andy Carr's talk show, I think, and she kept talking in her British accent voice, which I thought was really interesting, and I wonder how it all went down.
I would like to find out, maybe Johan or Sanic know, if she has a song in which her character and herself speak to each
I'm
other.
gonna go out on a limb and guess that Johan and Sanic do not know a whole lot about Nicki Minaj.
They seem to know everything about everything.
The
I'm just-
gauntlet has been thrown.
I'm just saying.
Let's see what.
Yeah, we'll
need
find
to,
out.
We need to know y'all's
Watching
Nicki
the show.
knowledge.
Here, actually, you gotta get caught up.
Nicki
We're-
Minaj.
Nicki Minaj.
I had a long chat about Nicki Minaj at the museum yesterday with somebody and how about how she fell off.
Yeah, she's
And
not
he
really
told
part of
me
things anymore,
this
right?
this person I was working at the museum told me, speaking of getting canceled, that her husband is like
Oh,
a registered
yeah.
sex offender, and she
He's-
and she goes online and just like fucks with the like victim.
Oh my god.
Like Nicki's
really?
like Nick. Yeah, it's not a good look.
Ugh.
Everyone's like, we have Cardi B now. We don't need you.
Because like
We've replaced you with
We've
another
reached
woman.
the
Because-
ideal of
That's
this.
he got
it is for
because
women
he
rappers,
got
though.
Uh-huh.
They rigged
Yeah, because Nicki
you only
replaced
have the
Kim.
youngest one.
Right. Yeah, look him.
It was
'Cause
just
he-
like, you only need one.
They like
Yeah.
moved and he didn't register or whatever, and he got in trouble, and it's been in the news.
Sanic said, "I don't like rap. Sorry."
Yeah.
I fucking told you that.
What about country? Does he like country?
That's the other
Country
one.
rap.
Yeah.
There's a
I like all music except
like
rap
everything
and
else.
country.
There was a really good thing that was going around Instagram, one of those "In this house we believe" signs. It was "In this house we love every music except rap and country."
It's not her brother, it's her husband. I thought.
Yeah. That's what they
That's
say.
what
Johan
you-
thinks that her brother is a sex offender, but I think it's her husband.
Oh, okay.
Could be both. That could be.
Both.
There was also the thing with her cousin.
There are a lot of sex
What was
Yeah,
the
her
thing with
cousin's
cousin?
friend has
Or her
big
cousin's
balls
friend has big balls
Right.
from the COVID-19
Yeah.
vaccine.
Her
from
cousin's
clearly
friend
cheating on
has
his
big
fiancée.
balls from the COVID-19
Yes.
vaccine. Got it. I'm caught up.
COVID.
Yeah, everyone's obsessed
Man,
with
the
that.
internet
for a
moves
couple
on
days.
so quickly from things. That
Yeah,
feels
that was
like that
last
was.
week.
Yeah, that feels like it was like a year ago.
Yeah, it was so old.
Yes. That was only last week?
It's her husband. It's
It was
her
like
husband.
2 weeks ago, something like that.
Or a little
Nicki
while.
Minaj hires attorney to fight lawsuit from husband's attempted rape victim.
You know, I could almost see if it was her brother. I could almost feeling sorry for her about it. And being like, it's her brother, she's rich,
Yeah.
she's got to like stick by him maybe. I don't know the relationship. But if it's a
Stick
husband,
by him is different than fuck with the victim.
no, but
Yes.
but like with brother and husband, it's a world of difference.
Yeah, that's also
Definitely.
Yeah. Like even fucking with the victim on brother, not as bad as fucking with the victim on husband.
Like,
true.
if
Yeah,
you-
it's still.
Still bad.
Yeah.
If you-
Not as bad.
honestly, like, I feel like if it's the brother and she's like, well, what am I gonna do? It's my brother.
Yeah.
And then it's also a little bit like, okay, she's like an understanding soul or something. But if it's your husband, like,
Yeah.
like you're not supposed to be loyal to your husband these days, especially. You're supposed to kick him to the curb the moment he does anything terrible.
Oh, man, I'm about to be a husband.
Apparently, Nicki's brother is also terrible for
Well,
some other reason. Nicki Minaj's brother is also
Oh.
terrible.
Says,
Mr. Minaj.
Says Johan.
Possible similar reason.
Ricky Minaj.
Ricky.
That's her brother.
And then his alter ego is Norman? Or
No.
Norman.
Norman. Yeah, Norman.
I
Is
heard,
he alter
I heard
ego?
alter
'Cause
ego.
that's
Alter
cool.
ego, yeah.
I like that. I like
Alter
that way.
Eagle.
Yeah.
And he's Scandi instead of a British accent.
Yeah.
He's like, no, no.
Norman.
Like, I will solve this submarine murder. That's the last thing I do.
So many
Anyway,
so many murders
anyway.
in Scandinavia.
Silk.
Yeah.
There's no Scandinavians in this book. That was in the last book.
Mm.
And they were
That's
actually
true.
from Argentina.
Scandinavians from Argentina.
Yeah. Or that's
Oh yeah.
Argentina.
Oh, because you mean the one guy who had the story?
Yeah, the seal.
Yeah, the
The
seal
seal
story.
guy?
Right.
Mr.
Oh, yeah,
Seal.
yeah.
I can't believe we're doing it. You guys were finishing this book.
It's crazy.
We got another one.
Are we?
Oh, I
Are we
can't-
finishing it?
Well, we
I
did
don't
talk
think-
about the last thing that happened
We
with the
already
lightning
talked
and him screaming, I am Silk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we talked about the ending of the book. So if there's
I'm
anything
looking
else
there.
in
I
this,
think we've mostly covered
if there's
it.
anything else in this chapter we should talk about, we should do it now so that we can stop
it's-
talking about.
It's a
this-
pretty
this book.
straightforward chapter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Crane's
Yeah.
just
It's just-
explaining everything.
yeah,
And
it's just-
still,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so interesting how
They like riff on the
Wolfe
boat for a
handles
little bit.
the endings of the sub books. It's
Uh-huh.
I kind of want to like go back and look at how each one ends.
What do you mean the sub books?
Like
The
Volumes.
sun books, you said?
the volumes of each book.
Yeah.
Like going like looking at New Sun and Long Sun, like thinking about how each of those
Yeah.
volumes end.
Yeah.
It's always interesting.
Because which book of New Sun is it where it ends with him on a battlefield and a floater coming down and like there's
3.
like the angel.
Yeah, I think it's 3, right?
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah,
when he
that's what
says,
the-
like, from that point forward, that war has consumed
Yeah.
my attention.
So the ending of this reminds me of that a lot. That like battle scene that's
Right.
like chaotic and you're kind of unclear of who's on what side.
Yeah.
That's like happening here too.
This
Oh,
also
this is interesting.
also kind of happens at the end of Existence. Just bringing it back.
I was just
Yeah.
reading a little
Bringing
bit
it
to
back.
see if there was something, and I just hit this thing that I think is interesting where he's talking, he's like laying in bed and he's looking at the ceiling in the hotel and he's like thinking about the tunnels and how they're underneath him, and then he's like trying to think about like what they're for and like who built them, and he said, and he's just musing on like who made them and what was their purpose. And like maybe Maytera Marble would remember the tunnels, the digging of the tunnels, and the
Right,
uses
'cause
of
she
the
remembers
tunnels.
the short song.
And then the next paragraph, the first sentence is their room, which should have been cool, was over warm. He's just talking about it being really hot. And the whole thing about the tunnels is that they're supposed to cool
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
the ship.
Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to be like the cooling system to release the heat from the sun or whatever. I just think it's interesting that he does that.
It's like in a movie when they say, "Who is this guy?" and then they cut to the next scene. Whoever's in that is
Yeah.
that guy.
Hey Kenny,
Yeah.
did you know that bears have aesthetics?
Was that a word or just a sound?
He said,
Oh.
duh.
Oh, duh.
I heard just whoa.
He said,
Yeah,
he said, duh.
Macaroni.
That's what I
for
thought.
parasitics.
Fantastic. Well, that's all about that.
Well,
I'm so excited for the next chapter. Like with the Quetzal stuff is hilarious.
Quetzal's cool.
The
he's got the butt hairdo.
yeah, and I went through the whole nonsense.
Like Bram Stoker's Dracula.
The first time I read it, I didn't know there were vampires until like the last chapter. And
Right,
then,
yeah.
And then rereading this chapter now, I'm like, what was wrong with me?
Yeah.
What was going on with me that I read this first appearance of Quetzal and did not see that everything he does is a vampire cliche?
Oh, like they mentioned his teeth that are on top.
He's got
Yeah,
fangs.
I noticed the fangs.
What
That-
did
I
I
was
think
like,
that was the first time?
This is a
Well,
perfect time
and
for us
it's-
to get into that chapter then. So you know.
That's true.
Yeah, well,
It's
our
written
next
by-
meeting will be our like Halloween meeting, right?
Oh.
And it's written by Horn, who knows about the Inhuman.
Right.
At this point.
If this
Like,
is him speculate, this is what he thinks the vampire
Yeah.
must have done.
Okay. Oh man. Oh wow.
Like at
Okay.
this point of Horn writing it, he knows that he knows about Inhumai in general, and also knows that Quetzal was one.
Mm-hmm. You like to cast the books. I definitely think of Quetzal as Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman, yeah, that's good.
Nice.
Because of Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker.
In old person makeup.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, not when he goes to London and becomes a hip London swimmer later on in the movie. In the beginning.
The guy who's the lead in Squid Game to me looks a lot like Gary Oldman.
It's a great thing to look like.
Yeah.
Not a good thing to act like.
Gi-hun. Doesn't he kind of look like Gary Oldman?
Wait, sorry, I kind of lost who?
The main dude in Squid
Wait,
Game.
are we stopping the feed?
Oh,
I can.
I kind of see it.
Okay.
I mean, I think we've reached a natural ending at this point.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well,
Chapter.
we should thank our internet boys. We got all
Thank you,
all
Internet.
3 out of our 4 regulars, I think.
Hey!
So,
Hey, if you regulars want to check out something on November 5th, 6th, or 7th, I've got a play on Zoom. If you go to the Mercury Theater Eventbrite, you can buy a ticket. It's an adaptation of Daphne du Maurier's Blue Lenses. We'll also be loading it up here on the Mercury
Maybe we
site.
could put
It
a link
sounds
in the
cool.
YouTube description.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll include a link.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Everybody come see it. It's going to be crazy.
And I guess our next one will probably be on Halloween, right?
Is
Yeah.
Halloween
Halloween's
on
a Sunday.
Halloween's
on
a
a
Sunday.
Sunday?
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
Halloween.
You guys should plan to do it before trick or treaters come, so you can hand out candy.
Yeah, we do it in
Oh,
the
that
morning.
Oh yeah,
Scare-
we could
and
do
scare
it.
kids.
Well, no, he's saying like segue it in, because think about how this is a really good Halloween.
I bet.
Yeah.
I want to be. I just moved into a new
I do-
house, and I really want to feed my own.
I also,
Okay, that's
yeah,
fair.
I kind of want to do it in my own house too. But,
Oh.
but
Well,
I,
we'll do it in
down-
the morning and whatever.
Yeah.
The more people feeding the kids, the more society benefits.
Damn
Yeah.
straight.
So I just understand.
I love trick or treaters.
Yeah,
I love
get the-
giving out
get the
candy
good
to
candy.
trick-or-treaters.
Yeah,
huh,
All
maybe I
right,
should
bye.
get some on the
Bye.
stoop with some candy.
I'm